And welcome everybody to Seiya Cosmocast. We're back after a week after a 2-week vacation here. Even though we should have not taken it, but we'll get to that in a little bit. I am your host Ramses, and of course I got here Kamen writer Furry.
That's me.
We're gonna start putting that on a shirt eventually.
That would be me. Yes.
Yes, your face sounded like that's me. And also here, of course, is we got Bangkos.
Greetings and salutations, everybody.
Another thing we're gonna have to put on the shirt eventually. We gotta start figuring our phrases and taglines so we can start monetizing all this. So you guys gotta start like saying stuff like waka waka or something like that. What's up?
We could definitely monetize the KRF Daddy approved.
I'll see how I can try to make a more cleaner version of that, and let's see what we can do with that. That will be something interesting. But that's an evergreen thing because that's also something we can use also on Sailor Moon Sez as well. But again, that's something we can discuss much later. That's something we can discuss, like monetizing stuff and like putting things on a bumper sticker. That's like way later. That's after. First things first. We still need to get an audience. That's the thing. We need to get an audience. That's what we first. But regardless, we have to start with some housekeeping, as I always like to do in the beginning of these episodes. First of all, if this is your first episode watching us, first episode listening to us, we are a podcast dedicated to the world of Saint Seiya. We'll do this every 2 weeks. We're the first English-speaking podcast dedicated to the world of Saint Seiya because there's a lot of podcasts to Saint Seiya, but they're all in multiple languages, mainly in Portuguese and Spanish. But we're the first ones to tackle this subject head on in English. I know it's like a really obscure thing, but we figured look, if no one's gonna do it, who will? And this is where we are today. And the reason being is we actually made into a very illustrious list recently about podcasts about mangas from a blogger recently, and let me see if I get that information really quick. Well, there were a bunch of other ones, like some other companions that were on that list were stuff like the Manga Mavericks, who we've had on the show a couple of times as well, and a couple of new other podcasts as well, like stuff like the Manga Melee, and a couple other podcasts from other more specific series. Oh, the Manga Critic, that is her name. She does stuff for mangashelf.com, and you're part of a list of so many other podcasts dedicated to different series in general or stuff discussing manga itself. So if this is your first time listening to the show from that list, hey, congrats, we welcome everybody. We really appreciate your time to check us out. And hey, if you like what you're listening, feel free to share this podcast, leave a review on the podcast, leave a rating on the podcast, preferably a 5-star or 10-star or whatever star rating you use on your website. And comment and say something about it, because those things help. Those things help get us out of algorithm hell, and algorithm hell is where we currently are. But I'm confident that with this kind of attention, we can continue doing that. Now, with all that said, I'm sorry for not posting and having a show last time, last couple of weeks, because I had computer issues. I was trying to upgrade my computer, and one thing led to another while I was upgrading it, and it just led to the computer just not working anymore. So I had to wait for a new computer to come in. I did get some generous donations from the community on both sides of the podcast of my podcasting. So for the sake of disclosure, I am not going to review who did, but we did get a lot of help from the community regardless. So it's and like I said, it wasn't that much, but at the same time too, that much did go a long way to get this computer set. So like I said, I apologize, and but it also gave us time to recharge and rethink a lot of things going forward. So hopefully you spent your time off wisely. Hopefully you guys got some sleep. Recharge. You looked at you went outside. Hopefully it not right.
Sorry, everything's so funny.
I know.
I did none of those things.
I didn't sleep. Oh dear God!
I never sleep.
Yeah, dude.
I go until my body stops working, and then I get up when it's like, okay, that's enough.
Oh, that is horrible. I used to do that, but as older I get, like I need that sleep like vastly. But regardless, like I said, like I'm not, I don't speak for copywriter Furry or for Bangkok. So I'm pretty sure they all did something. They all did something. They all did something interesting in the meantime. But like I said, we're try to be as consistent as possible. So yeah, just wanted to start off with that. So, but we also have, because of that, we also have a backlog of news that we need to discuss. A lot of news that we need to go through here. So, first things first, let's start off with the silly stuff first. Let's start with the silly shit. Like, because I think the silly shit is what like is I think this is like the most silliest, and like this is like what happens when you don't have somebody in chat. Sometime, what was it, like 2 weeks ago, because
Yeah, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I don't remember exactly when it was, but it was sometime in during that period that we didn't post an episode.
So yeah, during that time, someone at Toy of I believe South America, they posted something about Lost Canvas, and obviously they were using images from the anime, which caused a lot of stir from the community. Everyone started screaming, "Oh my god, are they gonna do more about Lost Canvas and that's and that blah blah blah?" But
Reconfirmed?
no, oh no, oh god. Oh god! If we knew that, if that was like their big, if that was something, if they did that, yeah, it would be great. But at the same time, too, no, it wasn't. But oh man, it caused a huge like problem on social media that day, because you had one site like they were saying stuff like, "Oh my god, is Toy kind of take over? Isn't that blah blah blah?" And then you got like the cynical people like, "Oh my god, what are you doing? Why are you posting this and that?" And we don't know what happened, but I'm pretty sure someone got fired that day.
Most likely, most likely.
So I mean, I like you had your ear more into it than I. Like I like to be honest, I saw the post and was like, hey, I thought I thought it was just I thought it was like cross promotion synergy, because they both had Saint Seiya. I thought they allowed it because like they're like, I know TMS is really cool about these types of things from time to time. They're like, okay, cool. If one thing's be like one person and like they want to cross promote with the other, we'll allow that kind of cross promotion. I thought it was one of those types of issues, but now that I'm hearing that it wasn't, that is that's a very different discussion altogether. But Bangkok, since you had a little bit more of your ear on the situation, what were your thoughts on this?
I laughed pretty hard that day. At first, I was like everybody. I was like, "Huh? Wow, this is interesting. I wonder why. I'm gonna wait and see what happens." And then they erased the post, and I was like, "Ah." So they screwed up, and I just had a good laugh, and I was just laughing, seeing the world burn that day.
Yeah,
A little bit of context for those of you that may not know what the hell we're talking about. As you know, one of the spin-offs, arguably the most famous spin-off of Saint Seiya, is Saint Seiya: The Lost Canvas, which is an alternate story of the previous holy war against Hades in the 18th century, written and illustrated by Shiori Tashirogi. The series spawned an animated series that lasted for 2 seasons. That was never officially cancelled, but did not continue production after the second season. And while no official statement has been given as to why, the reason most likely points to low sales in Japan. So a third season is something that fans of The Lost Canvas particularly have been wanting for years and asking for. Now, here's the thing. The whole issue about this debacle arises on one aspect. The Lost Canvas was not animated by Toei Animation. It was animated by another studio, TMS.
Yes,
And
TMS. Who those don't know are guys who work on stuff like Lupin the Third and other sub series as well.
Exactly, and to this day they still hold the rights. So when the Twitter page, Twitter account of Toei Animation Latin America posted a tweet that has been erased, but on the internet, once something gets posted, it stays there forever. It said Hades is preparing for the Holy War and has recruited the Silver Saints. Be a witness at this of this outcome, and then the hashtag Saint Seiya. Well, it says Knights of the Zodiac in Spanish. Knights of the Zodiac: The Lost Canvas. And everybody was like, "What the fuck does this mean? Does this mean that Toei now has the rights? Does this mean that somehow they made a deal? Does this imply?" And now obviously the conclusion that a lot of people jumped to immediately: does this mean that we're gonna get a third season? No, somebody just screwed over that day.
Yeah, no one said anything from. No one said no one. It's the right hand not talking to the left hand, and no one just really paid attention to it. Unfortunately, yeah. So it's like until said otherwise by an official account, which I shouldn't be saying that either because an official account did say something, and well, what we mean is like if you don't hear it officially from a press conference or something like that, then take whatever you hear as a grain of salt. So. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure too, Kamen Furry. I'm pretty sure it's like so you do your own thing, you do your own vibe, and that's fine. But like I'm pretty sure you that flew by you. So it's like if you did you catch any of it from your end?
No.
Okay.
I this was beyond my scope.
Yeah, I figured. That's why I figured like I figured I'd just ask just to make sure. So yeah, I mean, just like. It's a weird thing. It's a weird thing to be like. It's on one hand, it's so weird to say like wait for an official thing to happen, but this was from an official account. So it's like it's so weird for me to be like I don't know what to say at this point, other than like check before you do anything, and like don't jump to conclusions. Like always wait till like the complete thing is already out.
Don't take Twitter as a news source. Like that's everybody's first problem.
That is true. That is absolutely
true. Tweets as an official don't take tweets as an official source of your news. Basically.
Yeah, it's like I said, like that's why. What's up?
I was gonna say, think of a certain president who we're not gonna name by name here that made all kinds of declarations on Twitter that were not true and never came to be and never happened. Like Twitter is not a news site. Twitter, you can literally go online and put anything you want on Twitter. I can go on there and claim to be the reincarnation of Jesus if I wanted to. I'm not going to because that's psychotic, and I'm only a sociopath. I'm not a psychopath.
Those are two different things.
Like people, they're very different.
Yeah,
but people need to stop getting all their news from like social media, like not even just Twitter, but like any social media. I have family members that read something on Facebook and think it's true, and I'm oh goodness, it's just it's just. Yes, I understand that this was from an official Twitter, but also like it's probably like a really young underpaid intern that runs that Twitter.
Again, so, I think it was like Crosswires. The one was saying anything like because like I'm very sure like I said, this is what happened. I'm pretty sure Toei and TMS have some sort of working agreement to promote things because I think like for a while they were kind of hands off to the point where when Lost Canvas aired in Mexico and was actually in actually in production at first in Mexico. They couldn't call it. They couldn't technically call it Knights of the Zodiac or Los Caballeros del Zodiaco at the very start of it. Instead, I think they called it Los Guerreros del Zodiaco. They call it the Warriors of Zodiac at first because I was like, that's a copyrighted name by Toei. We can't really use that. So I'm pretty sure like they worked something out, and now they can call the series properly as it would be called in Spanish.
Not yet, because the rights still belong to like the name Knights of the Zodiaco, Los Caballeros del Zodiaco, still belongs to Toei. That's why it's still when the DVDs and the Blu-rays were launched, it still holds the Los Guerreros del Zodiaco, the Warriors of the Zodiac. That's why it's like that different name. Toei like they don't share the rights at all for that property.
Yeah, and you should know this by now too, Furry. It's like how Toei is very draconic with their ways of like working relationship with like getting rights and stuff like that. It's like pulling teeth.
No.
From the set, like
Toei.
Yeah, the infamous Toei that has worked very closely with all their Sailor Moon partners.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine them being unreasonable in any way.
We're being like me and Kamen Furry, you know the pain firsthand of like how Toei is like very draconic with their licensing sometimes.
Yeah, it's not just Latin America that gets that front from Toei. I think it's basically everywhere, not Japan.
Yeah,
and sometimes Japan.
Yeah, from what I've heard, dealing with them is very difficult.
And it sucks because they've got like so many amazing franchises and properties.
Yeah, and we host 2 of them.
And and then we have to like literally fight tooth and nail to get anything, like to give them our money.
Yeah, so it's like pulling teeth. It's just like some things are easier than others. It's like, when it comes to Saint Seiya or Sailor Moon's case, like it's a lot easier, but at the same time too, it's like the other franchises they make, it's like I want to support it, but you're making it kind of difficult at the same time too. I think the only one that has a lot of leeway is if your name is Dragon Ball. Because like that's the one that's like, okay, yeah, whatever. We'll stamp this one because we know we're gonna get money out of this.
Dragon Ball or One Piece. If you're not either of those two, they don't really care.
That's another one I was gonna say. One Piece is another one. It's like, yeah, whatever. Don't screw this one up. But they're like, okay, you gotta obey this. This. And again, we can get to an interesting, like, who like rights holders and stuff like that, and how they. It's also partially too with like how Kurumada handles his stuff, and also by extension too with how Chikyuugi handles her things with Sailor Moon as well. That she's very hands on with like what gets a rubber stamp at the end of the day. So again,
well, with Naoko Takeuchi, God, I'm so bad at pronouncing names. That she was more because they kind of like screwed her over. Toei did with the licensing amount, so that's why she's super protective of Sailor Moon.
That's a very good point.
So demanding to be involved in all the aspects. Well, I say demanding. I don't see it as like stereotypically demanding to want to be involved with your like multi-billion-dollar franchise. Like I don't see that as a big deal. But I don't know of any other word to use it. But yeah, she with a lot of the stuff that happened early on with Sailor Moon, she didn't get treated the best as being a creator of such a big thing. I guess like she didn't get the respect that she deserves. So that's kind of why she's a little bit more
active, more active, and more hands on with everything. Alrighty, yeah. But again, we've already deviated so far from what we were talking about. Like, yeah.
Well, you said Sailor Moon, so I had to talk about it.
That's fine too.
I didn't know this time.
By the way, we also host another podcast called Moon Sez. You can follow it on the listen to me and Cover for talk more about it. But regardless, but yeah, I guess like I said, like it's so weird, and also too, it's like it's such a weird, complicated situation. At the end of the day, you are correct, Conrad. Don't take Facebook, or don't take like Twitter, or don't take any social media, or or anything at all, unless it's like from an official, or unless it came out officially, like with a press release attached to it, or there's some sort of press release attached to it that we can see. Then we'll take that news as official. Then at that point, it was just some dumb kid, underpaid guy who was supposed to something, and some guy didn't cross their wires, and wherever you are, I hopefully you still have your job.
Well, the sad part about it is that I didn't see it when it was live, but from the way that Minhas was talking about it and explaining it, it sounded like the person that wrote the tweet was like a fan of the show and like knowledgeable, at least to an extent, about the show. It's just not everybody knows who owns the rights to what, so I don't think that there was anything malicious that happened there.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Like whoever's in charge of that is passionate about Saint Seiya, which is something that you want, and just wanted to bring up an aspect of Saint Seiya that doesn't get highlighted as much, which is the Lost Canvas compared to some of the other currently moving projects and even the original anime. So it sounds like they were passionate about it, but man, that is a pretty big screw up.
Yeah, it was a blunder. Like everybody can see that it was just a harmless mistake. But the problem is that with Lost Canvas, unfortunately, there is a section that is very vocal and extreme opinionated about it. That's all I'm gonna be saying on the matter, and unfortunately, it ruffled up those feathers. So that's why.
And also too, it's like it's like like I said, like we were discussing earlier, it's like it's so many also other moving parts as well, where it's like Toy and TMS and who's doing what and what's happening with all this. It's a whole different discussion altogether that we kind of like touch upon, but like that's a very different discussion altogether from what we are discussing today.
It's about who gets money and not giving free money to your competitor.
Exactly.
That's what it boils down to, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Alrighty. Anyway. So, well, I thought this was gonna be something we spent like 5 minutes. I think we spent like a good 20 minutes discussing this. So, but that's fine. That's fine. I think I love that. Like I miss doing these types of discussions with you guys. So why don't we go? So what do you guys want to talk about first? You guys want to talk about toys? You guys want to talk about a concert, or you guys want to talk about the movie?
Why don't we talk about the toys first?
Okay, toys. We are gonna get a Tamashii Nation pop-up exhibit in April here in the United States. And one of the few times that the United States is gonna get something first, Saint Seiya wise, they're making a gold Seiya, Pegasus Seiya in his fourth cloth.
It's
and
the third, the V3 in the anime.
Yeah, the V3 anime cloth, which is, and it's interesting because it's a very different gold than the gold that we're used to. That's the thing that kind of caught my attention first and foremost, because it was like, usually when you use gold, it's usually like this like they just painted it gold, and it's like very clear, like, you know, oh, they just painted the parts gold. But it feels like they took a little bit of time now, and they actually darkened it enough, and now it does look a little bit more like gold itself. It's hard to explain. It's a hard to explain thing, but it's a really good redeco of the figure of the V3 anime cloth. And one of the few times that like I said, this is one of the few times that the United States is getting this first, because this will be first available in the United States, and I believe that they're going to be going to Mexico, Singapore, and France in this tour for this tour for the 50th anniversary of Tamashii Nations. So, Benkas, you're a collector of myth cloth. I'm pretty sure you have more than both of those combined. Your thoughts on this exclusive?
It does look really fucking good. Like, whenever these types of figures get announced, I actually get kind of angry because, like, obviously I would love to have them all. It's impossible. Well, it's not impossible, but it's a lot of money, and it's a lot of space, and sometimes you have to like pick and choose, right? Like which ones you are willing to get, which ones you aren't. Like, for example, I decided a long time ago that I wasn't going to collect the regular Mythcloth series, but now that the EX have come out and they look so good and so faithful to the animated incarnations, those are the ones that I'm collecting. But like, let's be honest, this is just a reskin, basically. Like, it's just a coat of paint to a figure that I already have. Am I willing to spend that amount of money just to get it in gold? Yes I am. That's the problem.
That's where we have our problem.
Yeah, because it was something I was discussing on my other show, the Saturday Morning Squad, another show that hopefully you all will listen to. That's like, look, the Nintendo Online, you know, expansion pack, it's great and all, but you need to convince me with something more. And then they announced the Game Boy Advance stuff, and like, okay, now you got me. There's where my $60 a month is gonna go right there. You finally reached that point where it's like, okay, now you're worth it. And it's the same thing with this. It's like, if this was any other thing, if this was another kind of repaint, then yeah, I would be like, okay, yeah, it would be a really interesting curiosity. But the way they painted this is a very different gold, like I said. As a matter of fact, you can clearly see the very different gold they're using. I'm gonna post it here on our private. I'm gonna post it here in our discussion here, and you guys can check it. I'm pretty sure if Kamen Rider hasn't seen it, you can check out the pictures right here. But like, you can tell it's like a darker, more orangey, like a more darker, like a dark yellowish gold than it is like the traditional gold. And you can see that that's gonna come with like with Athena's cloth, quote unquote. And that's still painted in that old style of gold, but everything else is in that new style, and it's just like, oh wow, this like, it's night and day when you compare the two things together.
There are a couple of Mythcloths that have been made of actual gold, of 24K gold, but there are like only 2 or 3 figures out of that, and this is not one of them. Like, it really looks very good for something that's not actual gold.
Well, technically it's coded in 24K. But it's not really 24K itself, because if it was, well, one, it'd be ungodly expensive. Because like, I think the cost, I think I want to say like the cost for the if we're going by the gold standard, I believe like 1 ounce of gold is like $100.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, so like, no, it can't be. So like 24K gold plated, I can see where it's like they coded it with something that's 24K with something else in it. But if it's like pure 100K, 24K, oh boy, I think that thing must be guarded 24/7, like by like armed guards, and that's gonna be like the most expensive action figure ever made outside of like something that's vintage.
Yeah, but, no, I don't. It is expensive. Those are very expensive, but not that expensive. So
yeah, I see those going like the 4 figures, because like, you know, because of it, not because of what they're made of, but more because of their exclusivity. But in this case, it's like this thing's gonna be like, I'm pretty sure that this figure is gonna be available like I said, like it's gonna be available in New York. It's gonna be available in Mexico. I don't know what part. I think they're gonna be at La Mole to do this presentation or to do this exhibition.
I haven't checked, but either they're gonna do their own pop-up store like they did last year, or probably somewhere. They announced it with plenty of time, but it is going to be in Mexico City more than that.
Yeah, and then they're gonna do one in Singapore and one in France as well. So I'm pretty sure at those 4 locations. I'm very sure too. You can pick this. This is gonna be available at San Diego Comic Con because like they're and also any other convention after April. I'm pretty sure they're gonna have it available because like a lot of their convention, a lot of these pop-up exclusives have appeared on other have appeared on other places soon after they've been at their pop-up stores. So it wouldn't shock me that that if you go again and like then Tamashi Nations has like another pop-up that down the road that just figures right there be a more very limited supply. It was no coincidence. Like they always do that. Other figures include Spider-Gwen and Miles Morales from Beyond the Spider-Verse and a new Goku. All those SH figure arts. I believe they're also going to do a new Gundam as well. I think they're going to do a Gundam that I think it's one from Gundam Seed that's also going to be available exclusively like that as well with like they call it anime style color, which is just them doing it more in anime deco instead of them using more of the original design mecha decos. And yeah, it's a huge like as a collector of all things Tamashi Nations, I don't have many myth cloths. I collect a lot of SH figure arts, and I'm glad it's like we're in the 15th anniversary of this, and like it's like and believe it or not, all this started because of Saint Seiya, because the very first like major line they started focusing with collectors in mind, and like the very first Tamashi Nation things was the myth cloth. So from myth cloth, we got stuff like SH figure arts and Figure Arts Mini and Poplicas and all that good stuff that all of us enjoy nowadays. So thanks, Saint Seiya.
Well, it is something that Saint Seiya has always been one of the I forgot the word in English, but it has been one of the elites always when it comes to merchandising, figures included. So not surprised that it did that kind of chain reaction in that regard.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm also really glad it's like for the first time, the United States is getting something first for Saint Seiya, and I'm pretty sure this will go in with our next bit of news. I don't know if you guys want to jump into that. I'm pretty sure they're doing this to get more eyes on the movie coming soon. So I'm pretty sure okay, we got a movie coming soon. We better do some sort of exclusive. No, not really connected to the movie. It's something that tangentially by name itself it is. So I'm pretty sure that's another reason why they're doing this figure. It's okay, we need something with the name Saint Seiya to put it out there that there is going to be a movie coming soon.
Especially considering, and I think this is a good point to jump into that, the fact that there's been a little bit of a change to it. I remember that when the movie got announced and the official promo started to come out, in Japan it was also going to be called Knights of the Zodiac. But there was kind of not a backlash, but I did see quite a few negative reactions from the Japanese people that like Saint Seiya. I follow a lot of Japanese people that are into the series on Twitter, and many have why this name? Why the Western name, right? And they have renamed it to Saint Seiya.
The beginning.
The beginning. So the name now is more than ever and more than earlier at least attached to Saint Seiya, and that's the way that they're going to be promoting it now. So it makes sense to what you were mentioning previously.
So yeah, before we move on, Furry, do you have any thoughts on this action figure?
Looks cool.
Good enough.
No, I mean it's just not something that I collect. So I'm on the Tamashi Nation's what is it called? Their little newsletter that they sent out. So I've seen this and I thought it was interesting, but I thought it was just in the same group as the gold cloths that they've been releasing. I didn't realize it was different. So sorry. I'm such a fake fan. Y'all exposed me today.
Well, we weren't saying anything at all. I'm just saying, but there's I'm trying to be a good host here and try to get everybody's opinion. I don't want anybody being silent.
Not to mention that getting into collecting anything for any franchise, for any series, it's a pain in the ass and it's a pain in the wallet. So
yes,
you don't you can be a fan or a super fan of something without necessarily going into the merchandising aspect of it. So don't worry about that.
Yeah, so like if, don't feel bad. Go on.
I know my budget. I know like around how much I can spend and get away with it on collectibles and stuff. And unfortunately, the vast majority of Saint Seiya merchandise is beyond that.
Yeah,
grasp. I just kind of don't look like I really, really, really wanted the Thor, the Thor myth cloth that got released recently, but I had this inkling that like, ooh, that's a lot of money, and if I spend money on that, like, am I going to regret it later? And by the time I'd made up my mind that yes, that's what I wanted, it was already sold out because those things sell out in like 5 minutes. So
yeah,
during my internal monologue, he sold out, and I was like, dang it, he's so cool looking.
but yeah, I mean that's perfectly fine. Like I said, I only have like I think I mentioned this before. I only got like the very first myth class they released, like way back in 2000, 2002 to 2003. Around that time was just like, oh my god, like the weird elongated heads and just the weird bodies, and it's just like they looked a little from afar, but they didn't like up close. You looking like ugh. It's like, and it's like, and you know, well,
that was all toys back then, though.
No, but I mean, well, thinking too, it's like I must have been spoiled for choice at the time because I also was collecting a lot of other things, and like, other things looked way better up close than they did like up than from far away. But we have better options nowadays. Like I said, like you have like those crane game statues now that are really cool. We also have we also have anime heroes, which surprisingly it's still kicking somehow. So like if you want like a budget. You want something within the budget, there's those things. But this is really cool. I like what they're doing with this in particular because it like I said, it's just something that's very visually striking. That this is something they never tried before, and I do hope that like down the road, whenever they decide to like take my money a little bit more, they do this with the Gold Saints. So.
Did you see the new Crane game figure that they announced? That's Seiya in his training gear.
Again, I think this is all synergy from the movie, and I want that figure because it looks. Because again, we've seen pictures. We've seen pictures of Makinyu in that training uniform, and I'm pretty sure again they're capitalizing just as Bankas mentioned. They're capitalizing on the fact that like there's a movie coming out, so we're gonna try touching on a lot of aspects from the movie that you're gonna be maybe seeing. Either characters or things revolving around it. In this case, we're going to be seeing that Crane game Seiya. I showed it to you guys like because I looked at it like I'm not a big statue guy, but I want this. I've said this before. It's like I
like that
because like the thing is,
I mean, that's my alley.
Yeah, and like like I said, I'm not really. I'm more of an action figure guy. I know you're not the action figure guy, but I am because I spend all my time posing my guys, and I love that. Because they don't have to stay stationary, and I can make them do crazy things. Also, it's like I'm one of those types of guys that's like, okay, all right, Goku, all right, you got Goku, and you got see, and I can do that because I'm a nerd. I'm 39 going on 9. So you know what? Why don't we transition to our next year? And Becca, that was actually really good transition that you said earlier. Why don't we talk about a little bit about the movie?
There's a movie.
There is a movie. There's a movie. It's coming out. Well, it was like here in the United States. It's still TBA. It's still to be determined. It's still to be announced. But first things first. We finally got a new trailer. I mean, I don't know. Do you guys consider it a trailer? Because there's a lot of things that are recycled. We got to see a lot more footage from it.
It's a new teaser, in my opinion. And besides, I think that Makenyu said that there's still like the full length, like the actual what people consider to be a full length trailer still to come out at some point. So I think this is just like another one of those teasers that they release. Like, you know how now it's very common that they release like 10 teasers before they release the official final trailer for the movie, which I find it to be so stupid. But anyways,
yeah, that's the Hollywood system, baby.
To keep you hyped up for longer periods of time.
Yeah. So, but there is some interesting news that came out of all this. We have a date, and the date, it's not necessarily worldwide. It's actually for Japan only, April 28th, and that's gonna be like a general release. Let's see. Let me look up our Doomsday because I consider a movie release. Again, Baycott, congratulations, you won again. You said September 2023. I said October, and Kamen Rider Furry said November. you got closest to the date on you got closest to the date on both of these.
Not that close, but hey, a win is a win.
Yeah, it's like you. I mean, look, you said that we're gonna get a trailer. You're gonna get a trailer in March, but we got it in December. So you win that one. We still gotta make a date for me and Carwriter to suffer on that on our end of the bargain. I don't know what we're gonna do for the next one, but we'll put a pin on that one.
To be fair, we were operating under the assumption that they were going to properly promote this movie, but I don't not to be pessimistic, but we have almost exactly from today's recording 2 months until the 28th.
That's true.
And I just don't know if that's enough time to properly advertise this movie.
I agree with you. It pains me. It really does pain me. But you're not the only one making that point and stating that out. Actually, a lot of the people that I follow in the Spanish-speaking world and in another podcast, they were talking about that how basically they haven't given any promotion to the movie, and we're almost less than 2 months or less than 2 months away from it. That is never good. Regardless of how you want to look at it, regardless of what the movie may end up or not being, there's already way too much mixed reaction, with reason, justifiable, but still, there's still kind of a lot of pessimism around this project, and they're not helping themselves, or using another way to say it, they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot by not promoting the hell out of this thing, especially when they're going to be competing against Mario.
Yeah, even if they were just well, first of all, Mario not coming out on March 10th is a crime against God. Just FYI. That I know that's a very distinctly American English joke, but no. But also, like you said, yeah, even forgetting the fact that it's going up against one of the most anticipated nerdy property movies in a long time, it's just, I don't know. It feels like they're not even doing the bare minimum. There could be at least a corporate account that's tweeting out stuff about it and paying for promoted tweets on Twitter, or posters when you go to the movie theaters or anything like that. Even the bare minimum isn't being done. It just feels so weird.
All right, so just to give you guys an idea what it's up against in the same time period. If things go through what it is. On April 7th, we're getting the Super Mario Brothers movie. So not even close, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to watch it. So it's going to have enough legs where it's going to withstand those next couple of weeks to be there in the movie theater. Because from what I've been hearing from early screens of the movie, it's actually been really good. And another movie I think a lot of people are going to be checking out is going to be called Renfield. That's the one where with what's his face, Nicolas Cage, who plays Nosferatu. And then
I love Nicolas Cage so much. Sorry.
Oh no, that looks like a crazy ass movie. I want to watch it. And then after that, on April 21st, we got Evil Dead Rise, which I saw the trailer holy shit, I want to see that movie. But then again, too, I'm a huge fan of Evil Dead, so it's that's up my alley. So yeah, so it's up against it's not really up against anything big per se. I mean, the only big thing would be Super Mario, but it's let's take in consideration okay, if this does come out on the intended date, its next creative competition is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and that comes out the following week. And yeah, that's the one that's gonna squash every hopes and dreams right there. And here's the worst part. I'm very sure they're gonna do this, especially in Mexico, because they love to do this in Mexico. Because it falls a couple of days before Dia de los Niños, the Child's Day. Yep. They're gonna release a movie earlier, and if they're gonna release Saint Seiya at the same time as say Guardians of the Galaxy, guess what movie's gonna do a lot better? Guess what movie people want to go see more than Saint Seiya?
Well, unfortunately, but yes.
Does Chris Pratt have some kind of vendetta against Saint Seiya?
I'm pretty sure it's on this contract somewhere. It's at that really small text somewhere.
We have to rush all of your movies to come out right around the time of Saint Seiya to crush it.
Oh my god! I completely forgot he's in both of those movies.
Yeah, he's unfortunately he's the voice of Mario. When we literally have the guy that's been voicing Mario for decades on hand.
The worst part is there was that skit recently with on Saturday Night Live with Pedro Pascal, and he's like he does a way better Mario.
I would watch anything with Pedro Pascal in it. That man is amazing.
I love that man. I was watching the episode and I couldn't stop laughing at that at that thing. Regardless, do you have any thoughts on Kamen Furry on all this stuff that's going on?
I want to be optimistic. I want to be positive about it because even if it flops, like worst case scenario, this movie flops, we still have new. Like I'm trying to word it correctly. We still have something new that was added onto the franchise to enjoy, similarly to the 3D animated show, to where it's not necessarily everybody's cup of tea, but it has at least from the trailer of the movie, we can see that it has a lot of the right elements and the right vibe and direction, at least from what we've seen from the trailer, that if you enjoy the movie, worst case scenario, it flops and there's not going to be another one. This is a perfect introduction to the TV show and to kind of fold into the TV show because they're going to have a lot of the same story elements. They're going to have a lot of the same vibes and plot beats and things like that, so that it's easy. Just like with just as if the 3D animated show did get canceled after the first season. You know, we talked about how that was still a good way to roll into the original series. So that's the one positive thing that I'm clinging to with this in general, is that we have another piece of media that is going to grab potentially another demographic of people or another group of people that might have never heard of Saint Seiya before. And even if it doesn't do fantastically, it could still greatly help the community in general in the English speaking countries and worldwide for that matter. But like, I really hope that this helps cultivate a little bit more of a fan base here in the English speaking world at the very least.
All right. Because do you have any other thoughts on what's going on with the movie and with your opinion on what's on all this all that that's going on?
But I pretty much share the sentiment that Kamen Rider Furry just shared with us, and I completely agree. Like, here's the thing: like, if we want to think of extremes, like it's always kind of like it's always good to go to these projects with like reserved expectations. It could go either way, and at this point, I'm trying not to think about that in particular. I'm more of I want to see what they end up showing. I want to see how they're gonna proceed with this, if they decide to proceed with this, and whether it does or not. Like, at the very least, it gives something new, and it also gives the opportunity for people in the entire world, be it younger people here in Latin America, be it a new audience in the US or in Canada or in English-speaking parts of the world, to be introduced to this property. Like, it might catch the attention of some new people, and that is always a good thing. And besides, Saint Seiya, the essence of it is always standing up, even when against the face of adversity. Like, even when everything seems to be against you, and even when everything seems to be going completely to hell and wrong, like being able to stand up and basically be reborn from your ashes after that. Like, that's one of the core elements of this franchise. So it's nothing new that to the franchise itself. I just hope that the project does well, and at the very least, we got our very first sneak peek, like a 2-second one, of the Phoenix Saint. So
yes, it looks good.
Yeah,
it looks good. Like, I'm sure it's gonna have a little bit of the same problem that the Pegasus Cloud has in terms of coloring, but that's a minor nitpick. But
that's
so
Hollywood
far,
in general. That's Hollywood in general, man. It's not a production thing. It's Hollywood in general. They, for some reason, like, I was looking at something recently, and like, they're darkening up too many things. Like, we don't need. Like, could we like put a little bit of like a little light to, like, you know, like one more light. What?
Desaturating colors.
But like, as I said, this is not an isolated incident with just Saint Seiya. It's an industry wide thing where it's like things are getting darker anyway, so like you can't get a good glimpse of things. That's an industry thing, not just one particular movie. It's like all these movies, especially recently, have been doing that. But yeah, we got to see a little bit more of Diego Trico as Iki, or as they're calling him now, they're calling him Nero. They're calling him the mysterious assassin. We all know it's the Phoenix. We all know it's the Phoenix Saint or the Phoenix Knight. So
I can't wait for when they actually say that when they in the movie says the Phoenix is. I can't wait for the memes like, no, really?
no. but I like I said, like right now for me at least, Saint Seiya, like this movie, like I said, like I'm going in cautiously optimistic because like obviously one, I host a podcast about it and everything hinges on me being optimistic about it, and but two, um everything else looks fine, like everything else looks good. It's just like I have to kind of reserve myself on a lot of things so far to um it's okay. What it is right now, I think I think with the movie right now, it's yeah, it's looking good so far. It's just that though again, this goes back to the issue with the Saint Seiya, with the CGI series when it was in that weird purgatory when they were transitioning from Netflix to Crunchyroll, of like them being very silent, and then like them suddenly screen the information about like about everything kind of like last minute, and I'm coming and like I like I mean, this could work also too, because like I've seen movies thrive from this kind of a environment where they can dump the movie on like on a streaming service or video on demand, and like maybe from there, like or at least here in the United States, they'll do something like that. And while that's like the worst case scenario, I think that's also a great like hey, if you don't want to spend like movies are expensive and you don't want to go out, especially since like COVID is still a thing, and you don't want to be or if you just don't want to go to a movie theater with like some sticky floors and like some guy sneaking in God knows how much food and with so much food and his kids and like their kids are making so much noise that they're watching the movie and they noisy the heck out of you. This is why I go to the movies at like the very first showing at like 10 o'clock in the morning because I like to be with the old people. So it's like I totally understand that like if they want to take that approach, especially in like places that they might not be too confident on the popularity of the series, like say here in the United States, but they have to take advantage of like places where this series might very where it's still popular, like in Mexico, Japan, and all that stuff. And they have to at least try to do a some sort of theatrical release. So my hopes is that we're gonna get some sort of theatrical release soonish. But for now, I think like we just have to like wait and see. As like I said, as far as the movie goes, it looks great. But again, it's like I'm starting to notice more and more that are like as the effects are being finished up and things are being like and things are starting to get more clear, or in this case, it's starting to get darker. It's starting to fall into too many tropes of like what's modern movies. It's like my problem with like modern movies nowadays. Where it's like I do hope that like I'm proven wrong. I could eat crow and they don't like make the movie too CGI heavy. I think that's my biggest problem with like movies nowadays. It's like they're really leaning too much on special effects, and it's like look, special effects are great. I don't mind that because like we all want to see spectacle sometimes, and the good spectacle is through CGI. But we have so many movies in the last couple of years that have been like just CGI like blobfest. It kind of reminds me of the time with like the Michael Bay Transformers movies where it's just like it's just a bunch of things happening on screen and you can't really tell what's going on sometimes. And sometimes a lot of movies nowadays, especially like movies these types of spectacle like tentpole or like slash movies that are like supposed to be like these movies where like, these action heavy movies, it just kind of deviates to just CGI blobfest, and it's like I don't want that movie. I don't want it to end up like that, but the more I'm looking at it, the more it will. I hope at least that they don't that they can at least pull away from that like by a lot.
Yeah, hopefully.
My biggest fear, which I think is becoming realized, unless they pull a switcheroo on us here at the very end, I'm just afraid that this is just going to be just Seiya's origin story. Just Seiya. Like I understand that we've got the Phoenix Claw showing up, but we haven't seen any of the other the core 5 characters other than Seiya and a sliver of Iki/Nero. And I'm just like, because that means that if this movie is successful, then they're going to have potentially another film to set up the additional 3 characters and get them established and get them involved in the plot before we could get to what everybody really wants to see, which is the Sanctuary arc. So that means that there could be potentially another sequel in the way of getting to Sanctuary, because I have zero faith that this movie is going to get to Sanctuary arc. Like it won't happen. Legend of Sanctuary really pushed the limits of how fast you can tell this story to get to that story arc. So I'm fairly sure that they're not going to rush through it like that. But just the sad part, the sad realization that this is most likely going to be a Seiya origin story of like specifically just him means that even in the best case scenario, it's going to take a long while to get to Sanctuary, and that's just I want to see the live action Gold Saints. I want to see the live action Sanctuary. I want to see all of that stuff, but it's probably going to be best case scenario, even probably going to be years.
Yeah, that's the problem. You need it all because, like, yeah, I think you are correct. Where it's like I think this is all just this movie is just gonna be a Seiya origin story, which I don't mind. I don't mind, but I do understand too. It's like you have like if this movie does end up being successful, you kind of have to now find a way to like horseshoe in all the other aspects. And now it's now it's a juggling game of like how to do all that like in a short amount of time. Especially with these kind of movies, it's like you got to get in and out in like 90 minutes. So even like even the Legend of the Sactuary movie, like we were very generous and like that was at least like a little under 2 hours. But still, it's like
Well, I count it back to the Jim and the Holograms movie, which I apologize for bringing that monstrosity up again. I actually enjoyed it, but that's beside the point. But the main thing that was missing from the Jim and the Holograms movie is that the core of Jim, of course, was she's a pop star by night, and by day she's a boring accountant or like CEO or whatever she was. I can't remember off the top of my head. She was some kind of business lady during the day, and that was the premise. But the driving force in the show was the conflict between them and the Misfits, and the movie completely left the Misfits out. And yes, I agree that Seiya is the main character of Saint Seiya, and he is the core element of the majority of the series if you don't count the spin-offs. But what drives the story forward is the friendship of the main 4/5, depending on when Iggy decides that he wants to be there. So I just feel like something like a core feeling of the movie is going to be gone if they don't at least cameo or show up towards the end of the film or something like that to really feel like that core, because Saint Seiya is the epitome of the power of friendship at the end of the day. And you need friends to have the power of friendship.
All right. Any closing thoughts before we move on to our final bit of news?
There's more news.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think we've summed up how we feel so far regarding the movie. Hopefully, as more information and the date approaches, we'll have more to talk about it. But for now, let's just leave it at. Let's just wait and see what happens.
Alrighty then. Let's move on to our final bit of news. We have a date and we have a location for the Pegasus Fantasy Symphonic Symphony. I don't know why I don't know why I keep on calling it the Symphonic Experience, and it's gonna be the second edition of it, which will be on September 23rd, 2023 at Arena Ciudad de Mexico. Becas, you were at the last one, and
Yes.
we actually recorded a podcast about it. On a scale to 1 to 1 to holy shit, how do you feel about this?
Holy fucking shit!
Thank you. Yeah, so it's like I'm really happy that we finally got a date on this because it was one of the things where we were kind of iffy on at the time, but we like they were teasing the date for so long. I'm pretty sure it was Arena Mexico or the producers were trying to get the seal, trying to get the final things resolved, but we finally got everything. Finally got everything set. Like I said, like we said before, it's like the last one involved a lot of music from the first part of the series. I'm pretty sure this next one's gonna have a lot more going in towards Asgard and to Poseidon arc as well. So Mika, since you have a little bit more, since you're the one here that has the most experience with this show, how do you feel? What do you expect? And how do you feel about the news that?
Okay, to be completely honest, I don't think that the excitement has settled in just yet because, okay, I know the date now, but I'm one of those people that, for example, the first one, I was super excited the moment that they finally confirmed the date because, as you said, it was something that had been announced years prior. I think that even before the original supposed release year, it was supposed to have taken place in 2019? 2020, yeah. It was announced in 2019. It was supposed to take place in 2020. Then obviously COVID happened, and that went down the shitter for a couple of years before it could actually be done. But knowing that it's something that it had never been canceled, but okay, it's still gonna happen. That expectation had built up for the previous event, and right now because we have just previously come so close after the previous one. Maybe the excitement isn't as high as I would like it to be, but not because of I'm not excited for the event. It's just that I think that as the date gets closer to it, that excitement is going to start to build up. What I can say is that I'm actually very, very happy. I hope that it is as at least as successful as the one last year. I am excited to see what new tracks actually get performed and which ones of the previous ones get shown as well. There were a few technical details that happened during the previous concert. Nothing too distracting or nothing that would like make or break the concert, obviously. But it was still things that were noticeable, and I hope that it becomes a better show overall this year. And they continue to improve in terms of the execution of what they show, and I hope that it becomes what the last event was, which was not just the concert itself, but the opportunity to meet so many people from so many different parts of the world that love this series and have a passion for this series to gather up and to share that passion for one night. I just hope that sentiment gets repeated again this year.
Conrad Furry, do you have any thoughts on about the concert itself? I know like you and me live in the United States, and I won't disclose where exactly, but we're like they're both pretty far from the actual location. But how do you feel like about all these news, all this news breaking?
I think it's cool. I wish that I could attend, but most likely I will not be able to. International traveling is not something I've thought about recently due to just expenses and stuff like that. It would be really cool to see, but I really like seeing clips and stuff that everybody posted from the last one and all of the cool, merchandise and photographs and everything that came out of it. And just to see that many people that are passionate about something that where I'm from is basically non-existent was just really cool to see. So I'm excited to live vicariously through Betnos for a second time.
I'll do my best to live for you.
You do know that for those of you who are new to the podcast, we do have if you follow the website, if you go to the website scosmocast.com, that's our website where you can find out more information about the show. We do have a PayPal and like other links so you can support the show. So you can, if you're so generous, you want to donate someone, get either me or Conrad Furry, especially Conrad Furry. I would rather him go than I go. That to go to Mexico if possible. So if you got like $1 you want to throw our way, that we would
don't feel obligated.
Don't feel obligated, but we would like appreciate it also. So don't feel like we're putting a gun to your head. But like I said, like every little bit helps, especially if you want to help, especially if you want to help out Comrade Furry, so he can like explore the universe.
Well, regardless of how, if either of you are able to make it either to this one or hopefully if this one is successful and there's another one, you're always welcome here.
All right.
I'm just going to show up.
Not buy a ticket, you're just going to like vibe outside.
No, I'm just going to show up at Ben Haas's house and be like, hey, how's it going?
I was like, hey, come on.
You told me I could come anytime. I understand that it's inconvenient. I understand that you're.
It's 4 in the morning. It's like 3 in the morning, and like I got it's work day and all that stuff. Yeah, whatever. All right. So, is there anything else on the news docket that we missed that you guys want to discuss?
Nothing new that's relevant. I think we can move on to the main topic of today.
Yeah, so I figured like, hey, it's a lot of news, and like I know this is pretty long as is, but like I figured like there's a lot of backlog, like literally all this stuff kind of got dumped. Like, even if we did do an episode before, before I compare when Kaputski's, we would still have to do this because like this all happened like a couple of days afterwards. So even if we were recording afterwards, the recording this all would have just been dumped on us like within like a couple of days within each other. Soon after the recording of the podcast. So yeah, even regardless, this was going to be a news heavy episode. So if you're wondering like why we don't have a topic or anything like that, well, there you go. Because like there's a lot of news, and like we tend to go very long with these types of news things, especially since there's a lot of opinions that we need to get through. So, but that's what makes it so really good. I think, in my opinion, getting opinion from both of you guys is the most important. And I know sometimes too, Conrad Furry doesn't feel like like he doesn't feel like he doesn't contribute, but he does. You do. So it's like I'm proud of that.
I did it.
Yes, you did. You get a gold star. I put it in your head. Alrighty. Let's get on to our episode. Let's go on to our episode discussion. 57 to 60 of the original series. Guys. So let me start by saying this first right now. Not counting stuff like not cutting stuff like Hades. Episode 57. You know what this means? You know what this means? We're in episode 57. We have officially.
We're halfway there.
No, you want to know what? You know what's up? Because we made episode 57, we are now officially halfway through the series.
That's what I said, and you said no.
Oh, I did. I heard. I thought you said something else.
I said we're halfway there.
You sounded muffled back there.
You
I'm
will
sorry.
not steal my thunder. I'm going to continue this bit without you.
Fine, fair enough. All right, fine. But yeah, you are absolutely correct, Furry.
I wish I had one of those, the ones that they have at birthday parties. The one that go, what are they called?
Yeah, just
party poppers. Party poppers.
Oh, the party poppers.
Yeah, I wish I had a party popper to do. Well, there you go.
So yeah, we're officially halfway. We're officially halfway done with the series, and yeah, I mean, what a way to get us, what a way to continue this whole entire thing. So, we're still at the Virgo house. We're still fighting against Virgo. Shaka is just being a cocky motherfucker, as he always is. And yeah, I mean, we begin the episode. It's like, you know, Shaka is like it's where we began the last time, where Shaka had sent Iki to the 6 hells, and he's all like, "Well, where's he ended up? Let's see, he ended up here, he ended up there," and then and yeah, it's like, you know, and then all of a sudden he just comes back. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, have you seen that meme that arose from Dexter, the one where the name of the detective comes and surprise, motherfucker?
Oh yes, yeah, I wrote down here when he woke up, Iki jump scare. So yes, so like, I mean, it's basically a lot of exposition, a lot of like talking about, like, you know, like it's a lot of showing off about Shaka's abilities at this point. So is there any details you guys want to discuss about the episode itself?
Yeah, actually, go on. Okay, go on. No, you go first, please.
Right.
I was just gonna say, first of all, I liked that this episode was raining. It broke up a little bit of the sameness that we've had. Not that I don't mean that in a bad way, because like this is it's meant to be taking place over 12 hours, so like you can't expect a whole lot of like crazy events, like especially weather-wise, to be happening. But the rain was cool. But one thing that I noticed that happened is that Athena is just laying out there in the rain, like face up in the rain. It's like,
God,
she's gonna drown. Like, that's how drunk people die. Like, don't leave her on her back like that. But, like,
well, she's got a big thing sticking out of her chest, so it's kind of impossible to like lay her. Well, true, we can lay her on her side. Yeah, that is true.
Move her underneath some awning or something. Like, girl is gonna drown there. Like, forget needing the antidote. She's just gonna drown.
Yes, and it's like, but you know, Kiki's doing his best. You know, I wrote down here, Kiki doing more than the other Bronze Saints do. He's
the only one that gives a shit.
We have. I can go on.
I was gonna say there's a gold knight that could probably, you know, control the forces of nature, stay right next to them, and he's just letting her drown.
And I wrote and I kind of realized something. We're like almost midway through this arc, and we still haven't seen the Jobber Saints. We still haven't seen Jabu and his merry men.
I was thinking that too.
Like I thought they came out. I thought they appeared earlier.
Yeah, actually, you know, I was thinking the exact same thing. Like, because I also got that idea when we watched the CGI show that they appeared earlier, but no, they actually appear. I don't know if. Well, we're almost there, so I don't see any harm in mentioning it now. They appear like when Hyoga is battling Milo. So basically, after episode 60 and episode 61, that's when they appear. So
oh wow.
Yeah, so we're not that far from them coming to Saori's aid, but yeah, that happens both in the original anime, in the manga as well. So yeah, that it's up until now when they finally appear.
That is so interesting. I thought they appeared way earlier, like sometime like before all this. But no,
I thought so too. But no, it's until this very fight.
All right. Well,
the other thing I wanted to say is that I love that this group of episodes included both 57 and 60 that we're reviewing, because both of them have like super like gay/woman fan service in it. Because in this one, it's like freaking Gemini is just bathing for no reason. He's like, literally, there's a siege on Sanctuary, and he's like, "This sounds like a good time for a bubble bath, guys."
Yeah, it's raining. He's outside, like he has he's got like no windows. It's all like the cold air is going right through his right through his going right through his bathroom, and he's like, you know what? I'm gonna take a bath.
And then he stands up and has no penis. Like, I understand that they can't show penis on there, but like they make very specific, like very zoomed in shot of his crotch, and it's just like eunuch territory over there.
I wrote down here because like later on in the episode, it's like he's like, okay, I like, you know, during the middle of the fight, he just goes down, but it goes like, and I wrote down here, the Pope went down like a periscope.
Yeah, he just like sunk back into it as if that water is like super deep.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I'm gonna go down.
It's like Austin Powers whenever he was behind the couch, like going down the escalator.
Yeah, like I said, it just went down like a periscope. So yeah, so
by the way, speaking of that scene, how fucking big is that bath?
It's huge.
I know
it
must Pope.
It must be. All I was thinking when I was watching the scene is, what a pain in the fucking ass it must be to clean that.
Well, he's got all those, all those underlings to do that. He doesn't have.
Yeah, the underlings that somehow mysteriously disappeared. We don't know where they went after this.
Yeah, I don't envy them. I gotta admit, like thinking of cleaning that was like, ugh, no.
All right, who wants to do cleaning service? Okay, we're out.
Okay. Oh, I also wanted to make a comment on the previous on the previous situation with Saori during the rain. Yeah, Kiki is doing his best to try to protect her from. I mean, she's already completely soaked, but at the very least, the water won't fall to her face. But you know who might be helpful in that regard? You know who is wearing a cape that's right next to her that might actually cover her entire body?
Right.
Moo, you fucking asshole!
Moo did nothing to help her. He just no compassion. Moo's the real anime. Cancel Moo. I'm canceling everybody. On Sailor Moon Says we canceled somebody. We canceled Luna. That's what we canceled. Now we're canceling Moo. We're just gonna cancel all of them.
Oh yeah.
My favorite part of this whole episode was because after this all happened before Phoenix Icky came back, and he comes back and he makes this like reference talking about like even hell couldn't hold him back, and I'm just like, what a fucking edgelord! Like, what? That is the most edgelord of all edgelord things that I've ever heard. But I love him so much.
Yeah, like he's a fucking badass. Like he says that like out of the 6 realms from the Rikdo Rinne of Shaka, apparently he was sent to both hell and the Ashura. And he was kicked out of both of them because they couldn't stand them being there. He was just too OP badass for them. Yeah, he was too badass for those two. It's like, God damn, man.
Even hell kicked me out. Yeah. Like, it's so fucking cringe, but I love it. Oh, I also had the surprise motherfucker reference in my notes too, just FYI.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah, so Shaka decides that he summons Limbo around them, and because basically what he's trying to do is point out that not only is he way stronger than Iki, because he's like trying to prove himself to Iki for some reason. Not only is he way stronger than Iki, but also he can do the same kind of mind games as Iki, making them a pretty good matchup. So he like starts making Iki hallucinate, and he sees.
So when we were going back with Iki, where he was trying to be, when he got kicked out of hell, like he talks so much shit. I'm pretty sure he talks so much shit. They're like, get the fuck out of here! Come on, out of here!
So annoying.
Oh god. But yeah, I was going to lead up to the next point where it's like he gets into a hallucination. So continue on, Furry.
Yeah, Shaka's basically just trying to prove that anything you can do, I can do better. Type of situation with Iki here, and so he makes him hallucinate that he's in limbo, and then he like has him have flashbacks this is the one where, sorry, I'm getting my episodes confused. Is this the one where he gets the flashback of carrying Shun, right?
Yes.
Okay, because I knew that this episode kind of bled into the next episode a little bit there, but like it's basically just at this point Shaka just flexing on him just to show how badass he is.
Yeah, and here's the thing: like, since me and I'm pretty sure Benkas have cursed knowledge about what happens later on in the series, I wrote down here: this plot point will not come back to bite us all in the ass later.
No, absolutely not.
No, absolutely not. Like we're gonna totally ignore all these things happening. Like they're gonna totally ignore this whole plot point about Iki running away with Shun. Nothing's gonna happen from this. Totally legit. Like we totally legitsies. This is not gonna be important to the story at all whatsoever. And
but I like my favorite part though about the whole situation is that like he just straight up said, because he tries to kill him and he comes back and he like destroys his cloth and his cloth comes back and he keeps saying that, you know, he basically tells him, I'll just keep coming back to life over and over again until I annoy you to death. Like at this point I don't think I can outmatch you, but I can definitely annoy you by never dying. And if that's not, you know, the level of petty that I want to live up to in my life, I don't know what is.
Well, I do like one of the things that like they try, and it's like something they did in a manga, but they did this way earlier, where Shaka was about to use his ultimate attack, and like that Iki was trying to escape it, and literally he's like, "Oh, by the way, you didn't even move. You didn't move 1 inch. You stood in place, just like the Monkey King." I thought that was
yeah.
At first, like, and I kind of stopped and realized something as I was watching. And this is more of a me and Becca's thing. Maybe possibly you, Conrad Furry. I think this is something that we discussed a little bit more on our other podcast, the Moon Sez, concerning you know, at that time when we were discussing stuff like, you know, Shintoism and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna ask you a question. I want to ask as part, and maybe you can chime in on this one as well. I don't know how you feel, because like, as someone that was young, especially in a very Eurocentric place that we lived in, especially me and Bangkok living in Mexico, how did you feel about the Buddhism used, and how did it make you feel when you first saw these things flash before you when you're a child?
I don't know. I've never been religious in my life. I mean, I kind of was. I kind of was when I was younger with like Christianity, but obviously learned my lesson there real quick.
But I'm saying, like, well, I mean, in your case, I think you saw them when you were much older, so you already kind of like were already well acquainted with like Buddhism and like how that stuff worked in anime and stuff like that. So,
well, I mean, I for reference, I mean, I did see it in Sailor Moon, like you said, with like the Shinto religion, and as hard as they tried in the like mid to late 90s and the early 2000s to erase all Japanese culture from anime and completely Americanize it, like there was still some visuals that you couldn't change, or there was still some like heavily tied plot points that you couldn't change to that kind of stuff. So it never really bothered me. I've always kind of had the understanding that everybody has their own things that they believe in, and everybody has their own way of operating and like throughout life and stuff like that. So it never really bothered me, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, one.
I just want to say it never bothered me either. Like it was one of those things where I didn't really even think about it too much when I was a kid. I just watched that, and to the contrary, it was like, oh, I actually absorbed that information. Like I got to know certain terms, and I got acquainted. Obviously, not in detail, right? And this is also somewhat of an exaggeration of taking up the elements from that religion and not actually knowing it fully. But it got me acquainted with it, and it got me familiarized, and it was my first approach to it. And was like, oh, this is interesting. This is something different, and it's like I never really thought about it that much in that regard. I just found it very cool when I was a kid, and still to this day, because it's a good way to introduce the attention to like different religions, to different spiritual and philosophical discourse and topics and things that you normally wouldn't get approached to in. So it's an interesting way to introduce people to those topics.
Yeah, and that was one of the things I found interesting. It was because, like, again, the reason why I brought this up is because, again, me and Kamen we host the other show on Moon Sez, and here and over there we were introduced to Rei, and in the first episode, it's very Shinto heavy, and like it was one of the things. It's interesting to see that in America when they played it here in America, they didn't really like edit all that stuff out much at all. And you know, in Mexico, anything goes. It's like as long as you don't show sex on TV, you're perfectly fine. You know, you can like again. They air this cartoon like in the afternoon, sometimes even early in the morning, when all the kids are watching it and stuff like that. And if you've seen some of the fights they have, it's like they shouldn't be airing this shit in the middle of the day for us kids.
Well, we got away with it, fortunately.
Somehow, so it's like regulations be damned. But it's interesting to see. It's like they treated that stuff like with some sort of respect. It's still exaggerated. It's still kind of like funky, but they don't treat it as a joke. They treat it as like a legit threat, and they also treat it with with respect also.
That's a great thing about Kurumada. Like, you wouldn't, like, unless you actually were familiarized with mythology, with religious elements, with like everything that gets put into his stories. Even if he distorts it to fit the purpose of what he's using it for in his stories, the research that the man does and the way that he incorporates all those mythological, religious, spiritual elements into the techniques, the topics that the characters are talking about, it's outstanding. I've heard from a lot of people that are actually have properly studied, like, for example, Greek mythology, and it continues to baffle me, like how they mentioned, oh, by the way, the reference that happens here in this part of Saint Seiya, it comes from this part of Greek mythology. Like, sometimes it's still surprising to realize how much effort the man puts into adapting that original topic element, etc., onto his stories. And I think that's okay, regardless of what we may feel or whatever anybody may feel about Shaka. I think that regardless of that, it's one of the things that makes him one of the most interesting characters in the franchise. The fact that because his attacks are based almost completely on Buddhism, he stands out. Like, he stands out from all the different characters, and he's unique in that regard.
And it's gonna be interesting. We're gonna have a very interesting discussion later on once we get to Krishna back in Poseidon, where it's just like, how do you guys feel? Like again, this is something we can discuss, like something in the back of our brain, especially for me and Bangkok, because like with that character, his thing was more I believe what was like Krishna.
Chakra?
Yeah, chakra, stuff like that. So it's the complete other opposite. But they go into that same kind of detail as well. So it's gonna be interesting when we get to that point as well. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting that like not just the mythology of like Greek mythology is being used in a very unique way, but also we're seeing stuff like religion, like with Buddhism, and also other tales outside of Greek mythology, like the Monkey King stuff. Without me knowing, that's like that must have been the earliest thing of Monkey King thing I must have watched when I was a kid, without me knowing what it was. So, because like after that, I'm pretty sure like that's when I started watching Dragon Ball, and that's when I started getting a little bit more acquainted to it. And then the internet came out, and like kind of like then we started putting things two together, and it's interesting that like for a lot of us, that was like our very first exposure to stuff like this. So it's like I just wanted to pick your brain, especially with you and with Bangkok, because like we're both at that prime age where this thing kind of like we're exposed to this, and we were exposed to this very different thing that we're not used to in our neck of the woods. And I was just wondering like how you felt about it, because like again, I find it interesting that like on one show we were talking about one thing, how he felt, and then another, like we're seeing another thing, like we're seeing completely other thing happen at the same time on this other show. So it's very interesting where we are right now. So, but let's continue on, shall we?
Yeah, sure. So next up, well, at the end of that episode, Shaka decides that the best way to dispatch of Iki, if he can't kill him because he's just going to keep coming back, is to just leave him as a husk of a person by taking away his senses one by one. And it kind of ends on a cliffhanger of he takes away, I forget what he takes away first, but he goes through all of the senses and eventually just leaves him as a vegetable that can't hear, can't speak, can't see, can't feel anything. Just literally, I'm not even sure how the man is still standing. But that's kind of where we leave off on episode 57.
So any thoughts on the episode itself that you guys want to bring up?
I love this episode. Like, Shingo Araki directed this episode. I think. That's
okay.
Like, one of the reasons like that the fight against Shaka is so. I think one of the reasons why Shaka in general and the fight against him is so memorable. It's because I think it's like the perfect combination of many of the most interesting elements that the anime has to offer. It was directed by Shingo Araki and the animation shows. The animation itself was top quality. The visuals, because of the way that Shaka fights, are very unique and very visually interesting. It deals with a lot of philosophical topics. It's a fight with Iki. He's always one of the best to see him in action. It's a very difficult fight because basically the odds are completely stacked against the hero. The music is like, here's the thing, like it may not be some of the most popular songs out of the OST, but they are definitely, I think, one of the most interesting in terms of execution. Like it's very, like it's like that type of sound, like like very eerie, very creepy in a way. Like that complements the character itself of Shaka. Like I think everything gets fits perfectly for what this episode is supposed to be in that regard. So I love it in that sense.
As a kid, this episode kind of freaked me out because like it like again, I lied. I did see this episode. It's the following episode I have not seen before. The episode 57. I did remember. I have very vivid memories watching this, and like the two things that stood out the most was the stuff when he takes him to purgatory, and it's like he's in that weird purgatory where it's like where he has to like where all the children are like making things to like make a tower in memory of like their parents, and the stuff where it's like here's Iki like carrying Shun on his arms, and he's like going through all this stuff and through pain. It's just like as a kid, that stuff was like that's still stood in my back of my brain when I watched it. It's still kind of like I'm not saying to say it scared me, but it kind of like left an impact. Like it left an impact right there. And the second thing that was kind of interesting that kind of left another same kind of impact was when Shaka just decided to like take all of his senses, because like at that point, it's like at that point I didn't know what was going to go, what was going on. Like I didn't know. Well, like we eventually figured out the end game with his we eventually figured out his end game in the next episode. But like it's like when you like when he started going up through all the things, it was like I started like one of the ones they said was like the sense of smell. I took a deep breath and like, holy shit! Imagine like having to like not feel that way, and like oh god, it's just like that thought of like just suffocating and like not being able to like use anything just is kind of terrifying. And I guess as a 9-10-year-old when you're watching this, it's like the most terrifying thing, just losing everything. And that image of just Iki just standing up, like with like his with the way that they drew the eyes, like without any pupils and stuff like that, was like I want to say like it didn't really scare me, didn't really scar me, but it left an impression on me at a young age. And that's why I always like it's like those two images in particular stood out the most in this fight. I guess here's a funny thing. It's like I think the reason why I have so many memories is because I think I rewinded these episodes a lot on VHS, and I have the most vivid memories of watching these. So it's like I have like going this at this point forward, I have a lot of nostalgia watching these episodes in particular. Especially this next fight with Milo, because I think the Milo fight, I think it's like the one I think I watched the most. I think out of all the VHSs that survived, the fight between Hyoga and Milo was one of the ones that did survive the move from the United States from Mexico to the United States. I think I watched that the most as I was growing up. And I would constantly rewind and watch all that fight over and over again. So it's like it's this and that and this upcoming fight and upcoming episodes that kind of like left left an impression on me. So yeah. So I'm gonna go into episode 58.
Oh, I didn't get to say my feelings.
Did you? I thought you did. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, there's just one more thing that I wanted to bring up, and actually I thought of it because of Ben Haas talking about it. The animation for this episode was a notch up, with one exception. And that is because the animation was noticeably of a higher quality. Like this is obviously, a lot of key animation that they were looking to show off, probably with like promos or just as like a key part of the show that they wanted to look good. Because of that, the reused animation was a lot more noticeable. There is a still shot. With the other two, so basically what the still shot is it shows Seiya unconscious, then Shiryu unconscious, then Shun unconscious, because they all got knocked out trying to fight Shaka earlier. But the problem is that they're so beautifully detailed, especially Shun's, because Shun is not just unconscious. Shun's got one leg like kind of kicked up, and his chains are floating around him, and it's like very elegant and beautiful. But they use it 4 times. The same pan across all 3 of them. They use 4 times, and by the 4th time, I'm like, were they just really proud of this, or did they need to buffer some time out in this episode?
I think the latter. I do believe
Either they were super fucking proud of this Shun drawing that they did of him unconscious, or they spent way too much money on some of the other animation of this episode and they needed to pad
You know what it
out
is? You know what I think it is? You know what I think what happened? Is that I'm pretty sure and this is what they do a lot in animation, is that what they do, they animate the entire thing. Like I'm pretty sure if you piece everything together, you can get a nice mosaic out of it. They drew all that mosaic, and it's just the camera panning. And they're trying to use much of it as much as they can. And that's why it's like
it was just like still shots over and over and over again. It was, and I understand what you're saying, but like, I think because it was a noticeable step up in animation, even the still shots were drawn so beautiful. I think that because there was so much detail, like if they had just drawn like a normal unconscious Shun in like a normal pose, I probably wouldn't have noticed it. But because of how like over the top, like dramatic, because Shun can be dramatic at times, like how dramatically he passed out on the ground with his leg kicked up and the chains flying around and everything. It was very, very noticeable. But that was my only gripe with the episode, really.
Alrighty. Is there anything else that you guys want to bring up before we move on to episode 58?
No, I think we can continue.
Okay, episode 58. So we got Ikki in a vegetated state. Well, I don't know. Can we consider it a vegetated state? Because like he's still alive, but
he's a vegetable. Basically, he destroyed everything that makes the man physically feel. And like, imagine being trapped in your mind without being able to hear, to listen, to feel, to like.
Yeah,
that's hell. That's hell on earth.
So basically, we kind of begin the episode with that shot of like Ikki still trying to like figure out his eyes closed, still standing up, and he's just, I think, and what I like is like they're showing flashbacks of like, I think they're showing like, I don't know if they're flashbacks or Shaka's trying to play with his mind. Either or, like it's
that's what I want to know, because like he technically can't see or hear anything, but he's having flashbacks. So like that's just it's a weird thing. It's like, do you need senses for your brain to work? Like, can your brain still comprehend all of that kind of stuff if it has no sensory? Like, I don't. It was a very weird thought experiment for me watching this episode.
That's on Toei. That's not in the manga. But they needed to pay to what's it called when they do filler to
pad it out.
Yeah, to pad it out, and that's what they thought about it. But hey, here's where that meme of the boys kicking a boy comes from.
Wow.
The one that eventually got replaced with JoJo, because it was basically the same thing.
Fucking course.
I wrote down here. I wrote down here as that happened. Jesus, Chad was a dick. Because like if we go by I don't know how they did it in the Spanish dub, but in the American dub, he's like, oh yeah, he insulted your soccer skills, and that's when they started to get up. I was like, wow, what a dick. What a dick.
Well, basically in the Spanish dub, it was like, we lost because you suck. You're stupid, bam, and they started to hit him.
Okay, so it makes better sense in Spanish, but yet in the English version, it's like it's such a petty thing for him to get mad about, but it's also on brand for Jabu to be mad about.
Yeah, I also think, I mean, like if we want to push that what they were trying to do, you could justify it like very far fetched, but you know, growing up in an orphanage, in a place like in an orphanage, the kids being assholes and them being treated like cattle by the Kido Foundation, like it sucks, but it makes sense.
Yeah. So but all this is so Ikki having all these weird things happen to him. It's like again we don't know if these are flashbacks. You don't know if these are you don't know if this is Shaka just trying to play with his brain a little bit more. Regardless, Ikki's trying to formulate a plan. And I wrote down, and as slowly actually the temple starts to kind of erupt. And I wrote down here, someone better call the repair guy. The temple's leaking. Because like the entire, because like the rain starts coming down and it starts waking up. I think it's like slowly starts to wake up Shun, And Shun wakes up and he tries to, and he's like, he sees that that Iki is incapacitated. He can't fight. He's in a vegetated state. He throws his chain at him and he wants to fight. And I wrote down here too. It's interesting that like the writers sometimes realize that Shun is actually a badass, and when Toy decides to do it, they do it in a grand fashion. This is one of the few times where it's like he's not screaming for his brother; he's actually kind of standing up for him. And you tend to forget.
One of his why? That was adapted from the manga.
All right. So okay. So that makes sense now because that's when when Shun has to be a badass. That's a Kuromada thing. When they decide to make him, when they decide to like listen him up, it's a Toy thing. Okay.
Basically.
Thank you. And I wrote, and basically as the other Saints start to wake up and they're like, what's Ika gonna do? Like this and that. I wrote down here, run for the next temple, you idiots!
Well, I was just like, one of them, I think it might have been Shun, was just like, oh no, Shaka's eyes are open. I was like, they've been open for a while. Catch up. Like, get caught up, girl. Let's go.
And this is where it leads to like something we were discussing off stream, off recording, where it's just like, I think I don't know what happens. I don't know if like Shaka hits him again with something, hits Iki with something, or Iki falls down. But all of a sudden, he's on the ground. Iki's on the ground, and in the English dub, he's like, Shaka's like, he's giving like this monologue, like, oh, you like, I am the most powerful saint of all this, and this and that, blah blah blah. And he starts getting up again, and the guy who dubbed it, because he gives this earnest line like, what? Like as he's getting up, and it's just like in mid sentence, he's like, what? So exactly, he gives like it's hard really to describe what that sound he made. That's like this legit bewilderment. It's like I don't know if they showed him if the AR director was to show him a sign and he just kind of freaked him out or something, or like they legit tried to take his wallet or something. But legit was like a legit reaction. Like, what? Instead of like any other area, like what's going on?
They asked him to do like his Tim the Toolman Taylor impression, and that's what we got.
Yeah. So basically after that, like we kind of like realized why he kind of like let himself be taken like that, and that basically without losing any of his senses, he can hide up everything to unleash his 7 sense. So he starts to unleash all of his senses, and he gives his beautiful farewell to Shun, and he blows up. And I like what he said. I like what Shaka says. It's like in the dub, he says, so basically you did all this so you can make yourself into a time bomb? And it's like, that's actually a valid point. Yeah. I didn't really think about it till like right now, because like I know they use that attack a lot in the series, but I never really thought I was like, they're just suicide bombing each other. That's what they're trying to do with their own cosmos.
In a way, you could say that, yeah, that's what it was. It was basically Iki maximizing and exploding his cosmos to the max. Because the thing is that Iki realizes that he cannot defeat Shaka with his power. Like he, as a Bronze Saint, Shaka is too powerful for him to defeat in a normal way. But he realized through fighting Shaka that by being deprived of his other senses, he would be able to awaken his 7th sense and then do what Shaka basically did. Which the reason why he keeps his eyes closed is because by depriving himself of one of his senses, he accumulates more Cosmo, and whenever he opens them, he kind of like releases it in a big burst, and that's what makes him able to unleash the Tenbu Hori. So he basically used Shaka's own trick against him in order to achieve the level of a Gold Saint and defeat him in the process, but he had to sacrifice himself in order to do that.
It reminds me, like I don't know if any of you guys play Samurai Showdown, but it's just like he let his burst out, he let his rage out, and it's just like, oh my god, I didn't put two and two together till like you mentioned that right now. I was like, holy shit, he went into complete like power rage, whatever you like to call it, and he did a super on him. If you want to put things in the context of like, well, it's not really simple because I do hope a lot of people that are listening to this show play Samurai Showdown. So if they did, it's like if you do, you're one of the G's. Props to you. But second, like that's what kind of reminded me as you were mentioning. Oh shit, he just went to full burst. That's fucking awesome.
That's them showing intelligence when fighting and not just being all about brute strength, which is something that I appreciate whenever it happens.
Yeah, that all things aside. Yeah, that you know, like I said, like I've never seen this before, and having seen this for the first time, it's really really impactful. And I just wrote down here because like I was looking at it, and you know, I don't know if the version you saw because was like this, but the version that me and Kamen Rider Furry watched, I'm very sure. I hope we watched the same version, Kamen Rider Furry.
Mhm.
It like you can tell like they're trying to do this thing with the animation where it's like it was all red and stuff like that. And I remember very very distinctly in when I watched this whenever I watched it in repeats, I would see that scene and it looked really cool on a CRT, but on 240p. But when it's cleaned up and it's on like on modern, it kind of loses the impact. It still looks cool, but I think it's more. I wrote down here the effect of him trying to explode and trying to blow up was way more effective on a CRT.
Designed to be shown in that technology earlier. When you translate that to high definition, it is gonna lose quite a bit of detail, especially with what animation has been able to do since then. So yeah, it's unfortunately one of those things where I think it still looks great, but yeah, when you compare it to what can be done nowadays, it leaves a lot to be desired.
Yes. Yeah. So So any thoughts, Kamen Rider Furry?
I got an extreme kick out of him laying face down on the ground for an extended period of time. Like I thought that was unintentionally hilarious. But yeah, I will say, and I'm pretty sure I've said this before when we were doing the CGI series. Shaka is one of my least favorite of the Gold Saints, and this fight is one of my least favorites. And it's not because it's bad. It's just that I feel like we're getting to the point now where everybody is like trying to one up each other in like terms of strength. And it's the hierarchy of the Gold Saints isn't super clear. Like they're supposed to be all on the same level, but like clearly like Shaka is, you know, several leagues above some of the other ones, at least as easily as they've been able to dispatch some of the previous ones. I don't know. It's the power creep is starting to set in with this. It never really sat super right with me. And also, my original favorite of the core five was Hyoga, and he has been gone for 12 episodes at this point, and I'm just ready for him to come back. So I was just like, I knew that they were going to be in the Libra temple next because of the way it was set up. And it's just like I knew that's where Hyoga's body is. And at this point, I'm just like, let's get this over with so we can get my blonde-haired surfer boy back in my life. Because again, we were watching the deep dub at this time. So yeah, I can get my blonde-haired surfer boy back in my life. That was a joke. I don't think the deep dub made it that far, did they?
No, I think they made it just at the beginning of. I think they made it just at the beginning of the Sanctuary arc, like just as it started. So like,
I know they got Cancer Death Mask in there, but he is one of the earlier ones.
Yeah, because we got to see him. We got to see him when he's at the Wulau Peaks.
I think that the ADV dub got further though. I think they finished the Sanctuary arc.
No, I think they ended midway, like around this point, as a matter of fact.
Oh, Anyway, but jokes aside, I'm just really ready for Hyoga to be back, so I'm excited to.
Oh, you don't have to wait any longer.
I know the gays are coming out.
I wrote down like when we get to that, I wrote down like a note here. Like I was like, yep, it's the gays.
The gays.
I just wrote that down. The gays, just right there. no, I wrote down here. Here comes the gay. And well, no offense to that community. I was switch hitter. Furry is confirmed gay. I don't know how you feel, Ben, but you know you work with some of the LGBTQ plus, two of them. So it's like, you know, I'm pretty sure you're cool with it. So it's like, you know, this is absolutely no. Like, I'm not trying to take a pot shot. It's just like that's the thing. It's like it's the gays.
Well, episode 59, which is our next episode, again, 12 episodes of Hyoga being gone, but we also get the bonus of getting to see Cassius one last time. And yes, he's dead, but we get a lot of cute flashbacks of him and Shina. And I know that some of them are animation that they reused, but some of those scenes were new, correct? Like, or at least not previously shown.
I think so.
But because like some of them were from the episode where he died, where he was like they were expanding his lore a little bit more. But I think some of these scenes were new. But either way, it was so cute to see Cassius for one last time.
But let's reel it back. Let's reel it back to this episode 58, just one last time, because like I as much as I want to talk about, there's a lot else I have to hear about this.
I want to get to the homosexuality.
I know. I understand that. That was my first thought, but like we got there's an order to this. So Bankas, any thoughts on episode 58 in general?
You better say no.
I'll just say that I like the conclusion to this fight. And back then, when seeing it originally, you didn't know if Ikki was gonna come back again. I mean, of course, him being the Phoenix and already having come back from the dead, it was kind of like he would probably will, but it was still, I think, was very well executed at the time.
Well, he came back. He came back via bullshit. So,
Yeah.
but regardless, like it was a really. I thought it was a fantastic episode. Like if there's two episodes that are really good in this block of episodes, this one and the next one are like so my favorite. So what? So we already dabbled into episode 59. Why don't we get started to why don't we get started with it? So yeah, so basically the episode begins with the death with the passing of Ikki, and everyone's actually like, hey, the sun's out. You know what's going on? Because I wrote down here, no, the rain was because of the Shaka was being a big dummy. So
yeah, but doesn't Aoria, doesn't he like say that it's Cassius, like Cassius or something?
Yes.
He says, yeah, it's just like, no, bitch, it's Shaka being an asshole like a couple miles away. Like it has nothing to do with Cassius.
So yeah, so basically what ends up happening is like we're with Iodios, and he's taking Cassius's dead body back to China, and pretty much he's there to pretty much atone. He's there to atone to China, but China's like, no, he died because of me. And then you have flashbacks of China being taken care of as he's recuperating from being from the attack from Iodios. And when he figures out too, it's like, oh, he's like Iodios has this thing. He has he's been attacked by the demon fist and he's possessed. That he has he wants to sacrifice himself to do it, but then Cassius takes her place. And like, yeah, we get to see like the cute stuff that he's doing like around the house and try to take care of her. Like, this is really funny scene where it's like he makes soup, and like there's a part where it's like he hands her the soup, but he's turning around, his eyes closed, his eyes covered, so he won't see China without his mask. It's hilarious. But it's hilarious and cute, but also very tragic at the same time when you think of it. It's like it adds more to it when you start figuring out like, oh my god, this guy. We get to see her from the perspective from the person he was trying to take care of, and how she felt about it, and how grateful she felt from all this, and her internalization of what's been going on with all this situation. So I thought it was a really beautiful. I think it was a little too long of a scene. It was a really beautiful scene to watch. So,
I have a question for the two of you because I'm conflicted on this as well. So in the last episode that we did, when we covered the last batch of episodes, I mentioned that I personally liked that Cassius's death meant something in this version of it because Benhouse, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that the 3D animated show did this, but I believe you said in the manga also like his sacrifice is kind of in vain because it doesn't actually work. Was that in the manga as well, or was that just the 3D animated?
That was also in the manga as well. Like it depends on the way that you want to see it, because like he didn't the way that it happens, like he kills himself, or he punches into his both his hands into his stomach, and Ioria doesn't really react from that, and Cassius is like dying, but it's kind of left ambiguous if he actually died in that moment or if he was just dying on the verge of that, and that's why it still hadn't got an effect. And it's not until Seiya is able to beat with one final attack Ioria that he finally kind of like snaps from that. But he was like, it does mean something because like the only way that the spell was gonna be broken is somebody dying in front of Ioria. So Cassius did not die in vain, but it does feel a little bit underwhelming compared to how emotional it was portrayed in the anime. So definitely the anime did a better execution of giving that emotional edge to it compared to the manga and the CGI show.
Here's my like devil's advocate, because that's how my brain always works. Do you think that this scene, because so basically what, for everybody listening, what's happening is that Leo is confessing that he's the reason why Cassius is dead, and of course Pizzazz, I keep wanting to call her Pizzazz, and Shina sorry, but old habits die hard. Shina is like, no, it's my fault, like he did it because he loved me. Do you think that the context of this would have been more dramatic or played out in a more interesting way if it was how it happened in the CGI, where basically Cassius's death did nothing? Like, I because then it would be, oh yeah, Cassius killed himself, but it didn't even stop me from my rampage. It still took Seiya to stop me from my rampage. So he actually died for nothing. In that being kind of a more hard-hitting stance. I was just wondering how, because in the moment last episode, I really liked that, he actually broke the spell by dying. But then with this follow-up scene in this episode, it might have been more emotional had he not been successful. And then Leo was having to not only tell her that he died, but also he died in vain for the most part.
Have been more tragic, certainly, and depending on the way that they executed, they could have played on that a bit more. It also depends on the way that you want to see it, because this scene is made to pad out the episode, but it's still a good way to pad it out. It's just
I believe it was necessary. Like, China needed to find out that this happened eventually, and I think that this is a good place to put it when it's not as action heavy, or I don't want to say it's not plot heavy, because when we get to the main point of the plot, like, obviously, like, this is an important episode. It's a very important episode, but it's not one of the big battles, so it's not like they're disrupting a massive fight to tell this sob story. Like, it felt like it fit more reasonably here for something that needed to happen.
I agree.
But yeah, I wrote down some notes here, but the notes were actually for stuff that's more pertaining to like the stuff that we discussed previously. But there is one note. It's like I just kind of said to myself, like I kind of stopped and realized if the Geek Dub made it this far, how would they have like gone? How would they handle a lot of this stuff?
I don't know. I feel like Deke got into a similar situation that Funimation got, or not Funimation, 4Kids got into with One Piece, where it was just a popular property that they wanted to grab, and they didn't do a lot of research on it. But hey, I mean, like they found a way to work around in Sailor Moon where all the characters die like 6 times over. So I'm sure that they would have found something here.
Yeah. So that was my other thoughts. But yeah, I know that's not pertaining to this discussion, but like that's one of the things I was like, we made it this far with so much death and bloodshed. I'm surprised. Like I would be like, I'm wondering in some other timeline if this was actually successful, like what would he have done? But regardless, I thought this was a really emotional, really really impactful little scene with China, Iodios, and Cassius getting to know him a little bit more as to what happened, and explain to China what happened as well. So so we cut back to the sanctuary, and I like there's a shot where it's like Mu has his helmet on randomly. And it's like, I just wrote down here, Master, you put your helmet back on, Mu. So
I completely forgot about that until you mentioned it.
Yeah, it's like randomly they do a panning shot. Like it's one of those shots where it's like you gotta make sure like everybody's still alive and they're still trying to fight for Coyote. And she's like, she's like, and it just cuts to like it has Mu and Kiki, and Mu just randomly has his helmet on again. I'm like, so what? Did you just have it on? Just why'd you have it on and you took it off? Like, make up your mind, Mu. God damn it. So yeah, so the rest of the Saints they make it to the Libra Temple, and they're surprised because they find a frozen duck there. They find Hyoga. I wrote down there, who ordered the frozen duck.
I did 12 episodes ago. God.
So yeah, so basically he plays catch up, and they're like, and pretty much Shiryu being the exposition machine he is, he's like, okay, I know who this was. My master told me about a guy about a guy who can control absolute zero. And it's like they're trying to like in a long convoluted way to try to tell you this is Camus.
Yeah, because in the manga, his Camus is his master.
Yes.
So it was an easy connect the dots type of thing. But they had to throw in, this looks like it's even stronger than the Crystal Knight, who's his master. But I heard that the Crystal Knight's master. It's like, okay, why do we have to do like the whole nepotism baby? It's like, well, my uncle's uncle works for Microsoft, type of
yeah. And I wrote down here because like Seiya's like just bewildered, and he said I think the line of the show. He says Seiya asking, "This doesn't make sense." Pretty much sums up how everyone feels at this point.
Well, my favorite part was when they walked in and they're like, "Oh, this is the Libra Temple." Sorry, I forgot where we were for a second. He's like, "This is the Libra Temple," and he looks over at Shiryu and he's like, "This is your master's cloth, so we won't have to fight anybody here." Like, Seiya's just happy that they could just walk straight through a fucking temple for once. Like, he's over having to stop and fight. they're already running behind by like 30 minutes, so this is a temple they can book through.
But no, unfortunately, they can't book it. So basically, what ends up happening is I think they're like, okay, so how do we free them? And then out of nowhere, I don't know, out of nowhere, the lead Rakov appears, and we spend like I swear to God, we spend like 5 minutes with Shiryu showing off all the sweet things that the clock can do. Well, it's one of the sweetest clocks ever. Because I wrote down this is the best clock. I wrote down here too. Not so showing off your katas, but when are you gonna free Kyoga?
Yeah, it just felt like it was like he was doing a school report in front of the class where he had to
it's like okay,
his essay had to be 500 words, so he's like, and this is the sword. It was granted upon him millions of years ago, and it cuts things with precision.
And I was like,
the Tanfuzz. I'm like, Tanfuzz,
Tonfuzz.
No, he says it weird.
He said Tonfuzz.
No, he says like Tongfuzz. He says something weird.
He got it right though. He got it right. It's as a weapon as a hand-to-hand connoisseur, he did say it right.
I'm telling you, it's weird.
Okay,
just trust me.
Oh, fine. Okay,
you're ruining my jokes. I hate it. I hate it here.
I know. But no, it's more like it's like some like 10-year-old trying to show his sweet black belt presentation to like all of his kids. Like I'm pretty sure afterwards he's have to break a brick of wood. So it's like that's what it felt to me, because I was like, this is great. It's great that you can show this all off, and it's great that you can use all of this, but there's a guy frozen, and you're on the clock here.
Well, I mean, they think he's dead at first, and then they realize that his heart is still beating, and then I think that's when things pick up. But basically, like what it boils down to is one of these weapons is like, it's like the Goldilocks thing. Like one of these weapons is strong enough to destroy the ice, but not going to kill Hyuga, and the other ones are going to destroy the ice and kill Hyuga. So they really just have one shot, and he's got to, with literally nothing to go off of other than just pure instinct, Shiryu has to decide what weapon to use to potentially, like, he has a 1 out of how many weapons are there?
Well,
there's 12 in total.
There's 6 of them. There's 6, but there's 6 sets of 2. So it's like it's 12 weapons, but it's so you have duplicates.
So he's got a 1 in 6 shot basically of saving his friend, and then a 5 in 6 shot of just straight up murdering his friend. And he has nothing to go on. There's absolutely nothing other than intuition. But I mean, I guess if you want to trust anybody's gut instinct, I guess Shiryu is the one that you want to trust in their gut instincts, because he's usually pretty right.
And I wrote down here, imagine he just picked up the nunchucks and just hit himself in the groin.
I just wanted him to try to use the Tonfas on it, because I was just like, imagine just like smacking a big block of ice with a fucking Tonfa.
Like you.
Why won't you break? Back. This is the weapon I chose. I can't go back.
They already put it away. I can't do this anymore. But yeah, it's like I don't know why I wrote that down, because I think at that point I wasn't saying I was checked out, but I was more like I think like reality started setting. It's like, man, they're really trying to like glorify the fact they're trying to make this big thing over nothing. So it's like, why aren't you just gonna free them already? So yeah, I think
I was let down that they chose the sword. Like, the sword is the savior. There's all these cool weapons, including a trident, which in the English dub he calls it a spear, and I just kind of looked funny at him. I'm like,
yeah. But I was gonna, but wait till we get to Poseidon. At least in Poseidon, those things get a lot of use in a good way.
I know. That's why I was like, where was this when we were fighting Poseidon?
But
anyway,
but yeah, so they free Hyuga. And the other, and pretty much are like they realize that he's still alive. They didn't kill him, thank God, and pretty much somehow they didn't kill him. And like he says, like, his body's still like cold. So I Shun will take care of him while you two go on ahead. And yep,
somebody I forget who it was. Somebody said he's ice cold, and I immediately thought of what's cooler than being cold? Ice cold. All right.
And I was thinking more of ice, baby.
Oh, don't get sued though. We can't do that.
Okay.
we only did it for like 2 seconds, so like we won't get sued.
If there's a ding at the end to prove that we're different.
Yes, but no,
real OGs get that joke.
Yeah, but yeah. So basically, Shun stays behind. He's like, I have to find out some way to do him. I know some people like warm his body, right? Like by being close to him. And it's like
he's like, I heard that you can warm people with your body heat. It's like, Shun, and exactly what part of the internet did you find that on?
and it's like, and if this was
what
a, if
magazines
this
were
was,
you reading where you learned this, Shun?
and it's one of the things where it's like, look, if this wasn't like you make these jokes, but it's very obvious like what they were trying to do. Like they were not trying to hide the fact what they were. They're not trying to like.
They almost kiss. They almost kissed 2 different times.
Thank you. I was gonna say like there's a clear shot where it looks like he gets up close to him, and like I'm pretty. In 1986, you have to use your imagination, but I'm pretty sure in 2023 you have Photoshop. You can do some pretty devious scenes with this particular scene. But regardless, like they were not trying to bury the lead. They knew. Toy knew where the money. Toy knew Toy knew where the bread was, where the butter was being spread on the bread. They knew where the money was coming from, and they knew exactly what they were doing here. Let's not lie. We knew exactly what this was. It just
it's that kind of situation where if you are, hopefully there's nobody listening to the show that's one of these people, but if you're one of those like anti-LGBT people, it's explainable. Like you can explain it away. You can rationalize it in your head. If you're any other rational human with eyes on the planet, like they're gay. But I mean, like if you were if you're one of those like people that's like super anti-LGBT, it is technically explainable. He technically was trying to save him with his body heat and his Cosmo, and they needed to be close together. 2 bros sitting in a hot tub, 10 feet apart, so they're not gay. Like that, you can definitely give it that vibes. But to anybody with eyes that isn't prejudiced, this was homophobic. No, homosexual.
Yeah, I'm like, no, you're saying the opposite. This is all the homo all the time.
Every homo.
All homos all the time. It's like, and it's like I said, there's people that can disagree, but no. I'm here to tell you right now that this is absolutely not like this is absolutely what they were trying to do. It's absolutely their intent. And
this is what, and like not to beat a horse that's been dead for 2 years, but this is why I'm so adamant about the Shun being changed into a girl, because like when people say, oh, Shun wasn't gay, it's like Shun wasn't canonically gay, but Shun in the zeitgeist and in the greater fandom and in the broader sense of interpreting actions of a person was on the LGBT spectrum somewhere.
Yeah.
Whether it was bisexual or pansexual or whatever other kind of like label that you want to put on it, he's in that spectrum somewhere, and it's very clear by the actions. So that's why I was so adamant about talking about how wrong it was to change this particular character into a girl with the 3D animated show, because it's gay. Like it's
in your face. It's totally in your face.
There's no way. Like I know, Ramses, that you joked about it before, and even Benhouse might have joked about it before, but like your mom comes in and like walks in on this scene of you watching this anime as like a 10-year-old or a 7-year-old or whatever. There's no heterosexual explanation for this. Even when you try to shoehorn in the body heat type of thing, like the context and the camera angles and everything about it is gay. Like this is a gay moment in anime history, and I will not let anybody take that away from me. Soapbox over, stepping down, letting someone else talk now.
Beckus. Anything else in this particular episode? I think I pretty much ran through the entire gamut. Is there anything else I'm missing, or anything else that you want to discuss?
I do want to add something to the thing with the scene, and I think that unfortunately is one of the things that added to the discourse about this particular scene. Okay. I don't want to get into the whole discussion about it, because I do agree with it. Like the way that it is presented, it's meant to be like that. But the thing that pissed me off, and that I didn't realize until watching this episode right now, is it actually pisses me off that the Toei were cowards in the sense of that they didn't even like stick to their guns, because okay. Leaving aside the sexuality topics, the logic behind Shun covering the entirety of Hyuga's body and covering him with his leg, to be able to evenly spread the heat of his Cosmo to him in order to revive him, you can stick with that explanation. And it would have worked if they would have stuck with him in that position. But at the very last moments of the episode closing, he changes to the regular position of just having him in his holding him in his arms, more in a sitting position. Like a sitting position. I'm like, and then because I remember that in the next episode, the very next episode, they remade entirely the scene by having him do that. Like he never calls him. He just grabs him like that, and that's the way that he transitions onto like Shiryu and Seiya realizing that. I'm like, okay, if you're already gonna do this in the beginning, then why not stick to your guns? Why not just have it that way? That's like the thing that I noticed with this, because I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Like, regardless of what Shun may or may not be, or what Kurumada's position may or may not be, that he's never really particularly cared about like going too much into detail about some of the characters in that aspect. If the story doesn't demand it, he doesn't really go into that much detail. But like Shun has always been a character that kind of like can emphasize the other aspects of masculinity that sometimes that at the time got very attacked, which was like being sensible, being more in touch with your emotions, maybe being attracted to males. Like it's just a shame that it creates such discourse just because they didn't even decide to like stick to one thing. That's all I'll say on the matter. Regarding the purpose of the episode, this is the way that we finally got Hyoga back, and it was interesting to see how they were actually able to make one episode on this chapter that's so short in the manga. So it amazed me that they were actually able to get a full episode out of this only.
Well, half of it was also spent. Like half the episode was also spent with Iolios and China.
Yeah.
So it's like
in regards to them changing the position, I did also notice that, but I pretended I did not see it. But my reaction to that, just because you brought it up, I'm gonna quote Futurama from one of the Tales of episodes that they did. The announcer just goes, "That happened, and now it can't unhappen." So it doesn't matter if they change the position; it done happened. We done saw it. So what can you do?
Yeah. So like I like overall for me the episode I thought it was a really good episode. Like the gay thing aside, I think I think that was one of the earliest topics we wanted to touch upon like later on. So it's one of the things where like I would love to have expanded discussion with Kamen Furry and possibly someone else from the LGBTQ plus side of things to like just have sit down with us and we have like a frank discussion about sexuality in Saint Seiya like this. So it's like so it's like it's one of those things where it's like I on one hand I'm as someone that just recently came out as bi, like I feel like I should be part of the discussion, but I think you guys like someone else like you kind of refer you have a little bit more experience. You like it's one of the things where it's like I still even though I am bi, I think it's one of the things where it's like I have to learn my position and just shut up and let you handle the discussion.
Well, I'd love to do some kind of special, especially if we could, like, if one of those LGBT people that we are able to get in is like somebody that is also one of our mutual Sailor Moon fans, and just kind of do like a double, because like both of those are so influential. Like there's a couple of other anime, but those are the two that are so influential for having those moments of like queer celebration at such an early time before that was a thing that people even thought about celebrating. And I think that'd be a really interesting idea to talk about both of them, or we could just talk about Saint Seiya. Like I don't care either way, but that would be a really fun episode to do. But because there's so many little gay things that happen, and I feel like, not to get like super tangential here, but I feel like a lot of times now it tends to be younger kids, I will say, but they'll be watching a show and two characters will interact and they'll look at each other and they'll be like, oh my god, I can't believe the show just confirmed that they're gay. It's like you should have saw the stuff we had back in the day, like this episode. Like you could sit there and say, Hyoga, or not Hyoga, Shun is effeminate, like he's gay, he's effeminate. You can sit there and say it all day long, but this is where we got it really confirmed that like there's some kind of queer likening to this character for sure. Because men can be effeminate. Femininity does not equal homosexuality or bisexuality, or it doesn't dictate anything other than your style and your preferences as far as aesthetics and stuff like that.
As Kurumada writes Shun, as a matter of fact, going back to like using Shun, because like Shun, as Benka's mentioned, whenever we get those glimmers of like him being a badass, it's all Kurumada, and Kurumada realize like he might be a pretty boy, but he's also a badass, and like he is still a badass. He knows his position. He knows what he can do with it, with his ability.
Right, like he went through all of that training and essentially child torture, on Andromeda Island, because Andromeda Island was better than Hell, whatever. What was it called? Where Iki went? I'm blanking.
The Death Queen Island.
Death Queen. It was much better than Death Queen Island, but they've said multiple times that Andromeda Island was not a cakewalk by any means. It was not even the easiest of the assignments that people got sent to by a long shot. So he's been through it. He's been through a lot of stuff. We get to see a little flashback of that, I think, in this episode, actually.
Next episode.
Next
episode, I wrote because I have it written down. It's like,
was that 60? Okay, I knew it was one of these two episodes where we get to see more. So like, Andromeda Island wasn't easy, so he's been through a lot, and Kurumada understands that, I think, a little bit more than Toei does. I think Toei is a little bit more set in characters are X, Y, and Z, and hardly ever change. But that's just my opinion.
It's one of those things, and it's something that people don't. I'll just go on this tangent real quick to end this topic. But it's one of the things that people don't really think about Kurumada, because sometimes they even go so far as to say that he's misogynist or that he's anti-LGBTQ. And the people that say that have never read any of his works. Okay, just to keep it in Saint Seiya, one of the best characters, one of the most iconic characters, and one of the most memorable and also powerful characters in Next Dimension, it's Cancer Death Toll. And he is a member of the LGBTQ, confirmed in the manga, in the show, well, in his story. He's still a badass in that regard. Like, if you read the story, you realize just how powerful he really is. And he doesn't care about sexuality in the sense of being something good or bad. He uses it just when he thinks appropriate. He thought it appropriate for that character, and that character is fucking fantastic. That's all I'll say on the matter.
All right, like I said, this deserves so much of an expanded discussion here. It's like it's such an interesting topic, and like I said, from the very beginning, this was something that I wanted to do. But different things that led to different plans and whatnot. But this is something I definitely want to explore again later on. So why don't we? So any outside of those things, anyone else want to bring up anything before we move on to our last episode of this?
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, episode 60. So we're continuing on with Shun. Shun is still with Hyoga trying to heat up his body, and he's remembering back to his days training back at Andromeda Island. And I wrote down here, oh, holy shit! These guys have names. Because last time we saw these guys, they were trying to stop Shun from going to, or was it trying to stop Junei from?
No, they were attacking Shun. And that's why he was late to get to the plane to leave for
Sanctuary.
Sanctuary.
Yeah.
Because that's where he learns that it was Scorpio Milo that went to Andromeda Island and killed everybody and all of that stuff. Because they bring it up later in the episode, not to get too far ahead, but Seiya starts talking about Milo as if he knows him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how does he know this? And then I was like, oh yeah, in the anime it was Scorpio Milo that went to the Andromeda Island and killed everyone, and that they set that up to many episodes later to where we're at now to have this conflict happen.
Yeah, even though it's like they figure out later, you got the wrong guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he's going back to his training, and I also wrote down here Sup Alador, because that's his mentor in the anime. So but yeah, it's we get to see a little bit of a flashback and a little bit of him training at Andromeda Island. Like I said, it's interesting to see. It's the difference between his training that he had in the manga, where I think it was more focused on him being strength and trying to find spirituality solo. Mm-hmm. And here he just has to go through all these people, has to go through a convent of other students, and we get to see those others Andromeda Saint hopefuls as well, using chain ability. So it's interesting to see that that we get to see a little bit more of that.
Is this the last time we see Junei?
No. She still appears later because she has to appear for the flashbacks with Aphrodite.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So
I knew that she was very rarely in this edition.
But it's good to see Junei back as well. So that's really cool as well. But regardless, it's a fight. We get to see how badass he is. again, like this is very different from how things are in the manga, but I think it's a good way to establish too, like he's skillful when needed. But they try to paint it in a picture of like, oh, he's only skillful when it's only skillful because like he's only because like he's weak and stuff like that. But no, he's always secretly been a badass. But just like they kind of downplay it, unfortunately, and I kind of don't like that in a way where it's just like, you're kind of like downplaying your badassness.
That's what I'm always complaining about the anime. It's not just to slap at the anime or just to do it for the sake of, oh no, the manga's better. No, it's just that it changes so much because it completely changes the light in which Shun is presented. In the manga, he has also his moments of weakness, but he's mostly a badass, and it's his nature, his good nature, his personality, him being the pure individual that he is, what is against him as being a saint, because that's basically what holds him back from using his true power. The problem with the anime is that because they obviously the animated parts before that information got revealed, or because they exaggerated that weakness shown in the manga as well, but they also presented it in a more exaggerated manner in the anime. Shun is presented in a worse light in the anime because he comes off as much weaker than he really is supposed to be, because he's a badass. Like, he's always been a badass. It's just his nature that prevents him from being a good warrior. Because if it were up to him, he would never fight. He would never raise his fist against an opponent. But unfortunately, he has to, because he's a saint of Athena, and that's like the weakness that he has, and the one that gets pointed out to him all the time. It's not that he lacks the ability; he has it. He could be one of the most powerful saints if he used it, but he nerves himself, if you will.
Yeah, right. So, yeah. Any thoughts on everything so far, Kamen Furry?
Mine's more so on some stuff that we like. The framing of the flashback, I guess, is more what mine was on. Because I really like. I have a note here because he's sitting there, potentially his first time with a dude, and his brother just appears as an apparition. I was like, I could not imagine me in a compromising position with another man, and then just like the spirit of one of my dead relatives just shows up. Just how fucking awkward that must have been.
Like, what are you doing?
It's like, what? It's like, I always suspected, but like, okay.
I like
you mind? Like, you mind a little privacy, dude?
But then, like, right after the flashback, they have another like tender moment where he gets so close to Hyoga, like they're about to fucking make out, like the whole fairy tale, like Snow White, you gotta kiss the princess to wake her up type of moment. Like, it felt like that's almost what they were gonna go for. And then like Shun is just rambling on and on and on about, well, not on and on, but he's just like talking about how like, oh, it's his Cosmo. He's gonna fill he's gonna fill Hyoga with his Cosmo and just like bring him to life.
That's not a euphemism.
If you replace Cosmo with penis, all of this would still work contextually.
Anyway, so basically, so Shiryu and Seiya make it to the Scorpio Temple, and they sense that Shun is doing something with Hyoga, unmentionable things to him, or mentionable things. I don't know, what depends on what side where you think of, but regardless, they feel this amazing power coming from Shun, and it's like. And Shiryu's like, this reminds me of a story about this guy, about these animals that find this hunter, and like the bear brings them food, the deer brings them food, this and that, and then at the very end, the bunny, he's so weak and doesn't have anything. He had to do something to help the hunter. And I wrote down here, by Seiya's logic, Shun right now thinks that Shun is dipping himself in a vat of barbecue sauce to save Hyoga.
That sounds interesting.
Because like, I'm like that, knowing Seiya's like dumb logic, I'm like, he's like I think he says, so he sacrificed himself to make himself food. I'm just committed. It's like, and then it just cut to Seiya's brain, just like him, just dipped this joke, Shun just dipped in barbecue sauce. So I mean, we get to. I think we're starting to see a formula. And tell me, stop me if you heard this. Stop me if you heard this one before. We get to Milo. Milo is taunting them, and they start to fight, and they're absolutely getting wrecked by Milo. And I wrote down here because I'm gonna mention the second thing first. We get to see something that's interesting. We get to see Seiya and Shiryu do a tandem attack, something that we rarely don't see in the series. Something that what?
I was just gonna say no. It doesn't happen too often.
So I do appreciate that they got away with that. But but even then, like to show how powerful Milo is, they wiped he wiped the floor with Seiya and Shiryu.
Shiryu.
And what he finally uses his Scarlet Needle and he hits him and like there's like I'm feeling like getting paralyzed this and that. And and the fight goes on like that. Like that's how the fight ends. And then the episode ends with Hyoga finally appearing, with Shun in his arms, lovingly in his arms. And I wrote down here, it seems like we had a formula at this point. The Saints get their ass handed to them by the Gold Saint, only for the main fight, like the fight that we're supposed to have, happen later, and that's when the real fight happened. So we just saw like the warm up, and just to see how the abilities of Milo, but now we're seeing now we're about to see these next episodes. We're gonna see like the real fight. So I feel like we kind of hit that stride right now, like that we kind of hit that formula.
Mm-hmm.
And
I never like talking about formulas, but you are right in the sense that that's pretty much the way that Kuruma always presents the fights. Like he usually will have, well, not necessarily all the time, but he will present like the characters that are about to engage, and he will always like make them like test their abilities, and usually the hero or the protagonist of the fight will struggle against the abilities of the opponent. The opponent will reveal like his set of skills, and then the hero will find a way to overcome those abilities, be it by using intelligence, be it by using more power, or be it by like applying a lesson previously learned to be able to overcome that. But yeah, that's pretty much the structure of how Kurumada stages his fights. That's
yeah. So I kind of realized that, as I'm watching these, and like I know, I think it's not a bad way. I'm not mentioning this in a bad way. It's something I started noticing. I think it's a great way to frame this because, I think it's a good way to show how the ability of the opponent, and then show off what the main fighter has to get through to see what he has to go through next. And I wrote down here because it ends in a freeze frame of Milo, and he's got this crazy ass look on his face.
Yeah, he looks like a psychopath.
He's like, you know what he reminds me of? I don't know. You guys watch The Boys?
I don't, but I am familiar with it.
So you guys are familiar with Homelander, right?
Yeah.
He's got the Homelander eyes. He's got this look of
yeah, he does.
So, he's got this look of I want to kill each and every one of you, but I can't. So yeah, I know I bum rushed this, but that's pretty much how the episode is, pretty much. So any thoughts on the episode so far, Benkas?
Yes, I fucking love this episode. I love it. Okay, just to the viewers, I have to disclaimer. I am very biased. I am a Scorpio, and Milo is my favorite Gold Saint. So okay, having made that disclaimer, I love this episode for a number of reasons. To add to what you were saying, the way that Milo showcases his abilities, the way that he basically toys and puts to shame both Seiya and Shiryu, and how he basically pummels them and destroys them, it's presented in such a cool and badass way. Again, this episode was directed by Araki. You can tell by the animation, so it's superb the way that he just plays with them and how he puts them in their place as Bronze Saints compared to his power as a Gold Saint. Everything about this episode it's fucking magnificent for me. It's one of my favorite episodes of the entire show.
Yeah, I think I'm more partial to the following episode myself when they actually have the fight, because I think, like I said, I've watched the fight so many times on home video, and I thought oh my god, this is such a good fight, how they handle it and stuff like that. But this episode was just a start. Like I said, I wasn't trying to make light of the fact that it's formulaic. I just started noticing this, and I'm not knocking. You are correct. I do believe that the way they had it, the way this fight is a great way of displaying power. I think that's an absolutely perfect way how to do it. And like I said, I just kind of stopped and realized what was going on. It was that moment of realization, and it was just a moment where it's I kind of realized what was going on, but it was never meant to be in a bad way. It was just something that just kind of popped in my brain. And you are correct. The reason why I say this was actually really good, the reason why this is good and this works, is because it frames Milo as such a badass and an unstoppable badass. And later on this fight goes on, you realize it's that's not enough either. It really takes the kitchen sink and more to take him out, and that's not even enough also.
Yeah.
So
Also one thing that I think gets doesn't get too much that much merit is in this episode we get a fable, the one with of the old man and the bear and the fox and the rabbit. Like it's one of the things that I don't think gets too much appreciated about the series. Like it went out of their way to use like fables and analogies and mythological like tales or legends to like showcase like certain lessons that the characters learn or that the characters show the traits of those tales. And I don't think that gets appreciated enough. Like the tale of the fox, the rabbit, and the bear is one that I've always remembered since watching this episode when I was young.
yeah, like yeah, all joking aside, that is kind of impactful, and you do get like the way that Shiru just doesn't even finish it, and he just tells them like this is what the bunny had only one choice, and I was like oh, like all joking aside, like it is kind of like it does like it sinks in, it's like oh shit, like he he sacrificed the bunny sacrificed himself for him as food, and it's like holy shit, it's kind of heavy. And again, this goes back to what we were saying. It's like it tells you. It goes back to the discussion of Buddhism that we said that it takes that you can tell the amount of like research that Kurumada had, and I'm pretty you're gonna tell me that, and I'm pretty sure this was an anime only thing, but even then you can tell that they wanted to keep the spirit of that by going into stuff like stories like that and using it in this format to emphasize more the point of what's going on.
Yeah. Definitely. But by the way, I wanted to ask you, how do Seiya and Shiryu react to when Shun they feel the explosion of the cosmos and they realize what he's doing? They immediately like try to run back to the temple, to the library temple, right? Because here's a bit of trivia that I'd like to add to the conversation. Remember when I was mentioning like Shun's weakness being his own nobility? In the manga, this is the moment that's actually something that doesn't get mentioned too much, but even his companions, probably Hyoga as well, even though it's never stated, but Seiya and Shiryu specifically is mentioned something very interesting, if I may. They say, like, when they realize what he's about to do by sacrificing himself, Shiryu says, however, when this battle is over, I won't allow him to wear that cloth again. I think that I know he's a saint, but he is not made to fight. Whoever his opponent may be, it's impossible for him to hurt anybody else. He's too noble. And then Seiya replies, "Yeah, I think so too. But you, if your theory is correct," and then they talk about the fable. Like even Seiya and Shiryu did kind of underestimated Shun in that regard because his nature, like they know he's way too noble to be a fighter.
Yeah. Comrade Furry, do you have any thoughts in general about this episode?
There's two things that I appreciated about this episode. The first one, which is something that got brought up. Oh my goodness, it's been so long since we've been on the original series. I can't remember. It got brought up in one fight very briefly, but Milo kind of drives it home here that just because Seiya knows how to use the seventh sense doesn't mean that he knows how to use it consistently or the best usage of it. Like he's just figured out how to do it, and it was kind of a fluke the first couple of times. Now he can do it if he really, really tries, but he's still nowhere near a gold saint level. And I think that's a really important distinction, that just because he's had these flashes of intense power, he still doesn't know how to control them yet. And that's kind of the main, I would say that's other than Seven Sayori, that's the main overarching plot of this story arc, is that they need to learn how to use the seventh sense or they're going to die. So Seiya and a couple of the Bronze Knights have used it, but none of them know how to use it willingly, which I think is a really cool distinction, because in so many shows, people unlock the new power and bam, they instantly are experts and can use the new technique or can use the new weapon or whatever item it is that they've gotten power ability, and it's instantly just part of their everyday routine now. But
I'm looking at you, Akira Toriyama.
But with this show, like I mean, again, we have to remember that this all happens within 12 hours, so it's still kind of fantastical for him to get that much of a grip on the power in the span of 12 hours. But at least with it being spread out with so many episodes in between, it really hammers home the feeling that he's not instantly becoming, this super powerful being. The other thing that I like is that this we finally have gotten, except for Iki, we've gotten the team back together. One of the things that I remember really liking that I didn't like, I remember liking as a kid that I didn't like as much as an adult, is them being split up. Very early in this arc, as we saw, when we watched through it, they get separated and like in the Gemini house, and then Hyoga's over here and Shun's over here, Shiryu's back there. They're finally all together with this fight, and it kind of changes the tone of some of the upcoming fights, and I feel like makes them much more memorable because they're kind of, for the most part, struggling through this as a unit again, it feels really nice to have that, because like I said at the beginning of this episode, the show is all about friendship, and we've had glimpses of that, especially with them being concerned with like Hyoga's Cosmo burning out and then Shun's Cosmo burning out, and they can feel it, but they have to keep pushing forward, but they don't have time to cry for their friends right now. But it feels so much better to see all four of them back together. And yes, Shun is still like unconscious right now, but at least they're all in the same room together for the first time in a very long time in this show. And it feels good again. And I'm glad that we got to end on this, even though in the context of the show it's a very dire moment. As a fan, it's like the culmination of a lot of story threads that have been happening for the past like 13 or so episodes. So it was just good to see them all together again. But that was my takeaway.
All right. Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. Like, the weird I do appreciate the fact it's like, it's one of the things where it's like I don't really like when they do flashbacks constantly, but I do appreciate the fact that like this was like kind of a shorter flashback. And it does show like what the true power of Shun, and like it is something that you guys emphasize a lot more. And this whole fight was incredible. Like it only gets even better as we get into these next couple episodes. Like I said, this is like it's like top 10, top 5 fights of the series in my opinion. Just because like it's so intense, and like the way that these two just go at it, it's like the bloodiest. In my opinion, it's the bloodiest fight in the entire series. In my opinion, once we start getting into the nitty gritty of this entire fight, and it's a great, like I said, like Mika said, it's a great way of displaying the power of Milo himself. And like I said, I wasn't trying to dog it. I just kind of realized what it was that was going on. But I'm starting to realize it was a formula. Regardless, it's a really cool fight, and really cool to see Milo being like this complete and utter badass. And like he is like my top favorite character as well. For various other reasons, but like we get to see a little bit more like his fighting ability and what he can do, and like I cannot wait to see more of this when we like to see. No, actually, no, we can still squeeze this in. But is there any final thoughts you guys want to bring up about this block of this episode? Any block of episodes that we talked before? Anything else in general?
Not too much to add to that. Just that this block was fantastic, and it always it accelerates my heart to see Milo in action.
Furry, any other thing you want to bring up?
All I'm gonna say is that Benhas, you think you're so cool being a Scorpio. I'm a Gemini. We're literally the main villain. Okay, so
yeah.
Well, look at me. I'm the Sagittarius.
The whole weird brother thing that lasts for a little while in another arc. Like we're really important. Just so you know.
Well, don't look at me.
Canonically, the Gemini are the most powerful of the Gold Saints, and it's stated in the story.
Well, don't look at me. I'm the Sagittarius in the house, so it's like I'm very important also.
Are you half horse?
Maybe depending on the day.
Have you seen Gestalt of Sagittarius, the night of the 18th century?
I'll
post a picture later.
Don't tell me he has like both things of like don't tell me he's a quadruped and he actually has like oh my god.
Oh, you search for him?
I just did a Google. Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Let me post it so that Furry can see that.
Yeah! Oh my god! This is awesome.
I'm scared now.
This is awesome. I love this. This is so stupid, but it's so awesome.
Why is he a horse?
There is a reason, but I don't want to spoil it. Let's just leave it at that for now.
We got time. We got time. But I do want to bring up a few extra things just before we go. One, again, we're halfway through the anime, the original anime, so yay. And two, we're actually at the point right now. If you've been watching the CGI series, this is where the CGI series technically ended. Like at this point, if you were to if you were to watch this, if you're like go to those CGI series and still waiting for the next season, which I hope they announce something soon about it, if you're that desperate, watch episode 59 and 60, and that should give you an idea. And if from 59 onwards, and that should give you an idea where we should be going next. So it's interesting to see where we are going with this series and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, it's been a great episode to do with you guys. We're running kind of long here, but we had a lot of great discussions, especially the LGBTQ plus things. Furry, thanks a lot for your input on all that stuff. Your input is always appreciated. Same with you, Bankhouse. Your input on like knowledge and background, and also giving us like facts about like how things were panned out from the manga and the anime really does help out a lot on this. So I can't stress it enough that you're an asset to the show. That both of you guys are really good assets, giving your guys' point of view. So regardless, we have to go. Kamen Rider Furry, do you have anything you would like to promote?
Just for right now, just because of everything going on in my personal life, for right now, I'm just going to promote Sailor Moon Sez and my Twitter and Instagram. Just because with ancient anime, a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes, trying to figure out what the next era of ancient anime is going to look like after some short fallings here. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. You can find me on Instagram and on Twitter at Kamen Rider Furry. On Instagram, I actually have been much more active on there lately, posting my collectibles. What I've decided to do is when I'm bored throughout the day or on certain days, I'll just look at my shelves, and if I see something that looks interesting, I'll make that the highlight of a post. So eventually, years down the line, you guys will see probably everything in my collection room. But for now, I've got hundreds of random anime and dolls and all kinds of stuff just sitting around waiting to be photographed. You can on my Twitter though, it's mostly just me trolling and being a generally strange human being, if you would even call me a human being. But yeah, you can get to know me there and follow me and all that kind of stuff. And then I'm sure that Ramses will get more into it, but we do have a Sailor Moon podcast that we've mentioned a few times throughout this episode. Sailor Moon Says, that I would love for you guys to go check out because it is starting to ramp up, and we're really getting into the groove with it. I'm really excited.
Bankhouse, do you have anything you would like to promote?
Yeah, you can follow me at my social media. I am most actively on my Twitter account, which is at MexicanGeek502. I retweet and post quite a few Saint Seiya related things, fan arts, screenshots, some information about the manga. So I pull interesting. I post interesting stuff there from time to time. Also, I have in my Twitter, it's the link to my Instagram account. Currently, I only have one illustration, but I'm working on another one. It's such a pain in the ass to color it, but I'm on my way there. It's almost finished. It's like, I think maybe 2 weeks I'll finally be able to finish it. But yeah, I'll also be posting illustrations there. And I've been saying this since last year, but I am working on something. It's just that other stuff IRL, as well as other stuff, as other projects, and just my leisure time have prevented me to dedicate it as much time as I would like. But I am working on something, so stay tuned for that once it's closer to completion, so I can finally say what the hell it is.
All right, sounds good. Okay, Kamen Rider brought up a few things. We brought up He brought up Sailor Moon Says, as a podcast dedicated to the deep dub of Sailor Moon. Weird but fun dub. That's all I gotta say. It's a weird but fun dub you've never seen before. It's an interesting dub, and we're ramping up with things. We finally got through Ray, and we got to see a lot more of his stuff we can do and stuff like that. And we're having a lot more fascinating discussions. Like I said, we had a discussion about Buddhism. We had a discussion of Taoism in not Shintoism in this episode. So we had the discussion of Buddhism in the episode. In this episode, you want to follow up more with that? There you can listen to that as well. I also host another podcast called Saturday Morning Squadron. We're kind of on a weird sporadic time right now because Rob is still kind of like weird right now with work, so it's kind of hard for him to pin down and do an episode. So it's one of those things where it's like pay attention to your feed. If there's a new episode, that's when we're going to get a new episode. We did actually record an episode. The first half of the episode is just us talking about the news, and then second half we're talking about pro wrestling with Komi and Stan. So if you're into the wrestling. If you're into the wrestling, definitely check it out because it was a really fun discussion, especially being a Stan. We're like, oh my god, remember this match? Yeah. How about you, Komi? You remember that match? Yeah. It was like, I don't know if you guys remember the skit from Saturday Night Live, the Chris Farley show. He's like, "You remember I told you this? That was awesome. That was awesome. That was us throughout the episode. That was us. Like, oh, you remember time Kenny Omega did this? I was like, yeah. You remember that too? Yeah. That was us. I like wrestling, guys, but regardless, guys, I really love doing this. I'm sorry for not posting an episode last time, but again, we're ramping up things, and we're like, the new computer's working very well, so you gotta look out for more things coming down the pipe as well. With that said, everybody, we have to go. For Kamen Rider Furry, for Benkas, I am Ramses, and I'm here to tell you all to keep bringing that cosmos. I will see you all next episode. Bye.
Bye-bye.